Psycho-Pictography, the new way to use the miracle power of your mind. Vernon Howard. Psycho-Pictography can change your life instantly, from the very moment you let it work for you. Regardless of your circumstances or age or personal problems, this tested science carries you to the refreshing atmosphere of a sky-high life. Just as anyone can let an airplane carry him or her lightly aloft, so can you soar far above your burdens. Psycho-Pictography lifts you to undreamed of heights, where failure and misfortune are no longer in sight. You may inquire, exactly what is Psycho-Pictography and how does it carry me aloft? You will find complete details about this wonder science in Chapter 1, but let's now explore together a few helpful facts. Psycho indicates the mind, while pictography in the use of pictures to convey an idea. So psycho-pictography is the use of mental pictures to convey spiritual and psychological truths that set a person free. Psycho-pictography is the science of absorbing mental pictures which provide the mind with powerful and accurate guidance. Once received into your mind, they work effortlessly to uplift your entire life. You need not strain with them. They become your silently faithful servants who work for you day and night. The wonderful new life you will find in this book has already been discovered by thousands of men and women. They used the principles of psycho-pictography, though they may not have called it by that name. You have the advantage of using the book to organize and present mental pictures as a practical science for self-enrichment. Psycho-pictography is both an ancient wisdom and an up-to-date technique. It combines the time-honored universal truths with modem findings of psychology. The result is a thrilling system that really works. The science of psycho-pictography was developed by your author after many years of careful study and practice. Your enrichment begins from the moment you absorb these mental pictures, but you must give them time to work for you. So stick with it, read and review, make this book your close companion for at least 3 weeks. Do your part as a persistent student of psycho-pictography. Then you can be sure of that new stirring within that announces a transformed self. You will find it easy and interesting to absorb the mental pictures. So relax as you read. A major secret of this science is to release your own struggling efforts and let yourself be carried lightly aloft. Let's adventure forward together toward the wonderful new life. The miracle method of psycho-pictography. I rarely admit it, my caller said, but I am in despair over finding the truth that might set me free. Does it really exist? Can I find it? How? The truth exists. It is a reality. It exists within you at this very moment. You may not be aware of it as yet, but still it is there. Your part is to listen when it speaks. An illustrative story helped to clear the idea in the caller's mind. A Swiss shepherd boy was kidnapped by passing gypsies. As he was hustled away inside the wagon, he heard the ringing of the village bell. The sound became fainter and fainter as the wagon carried him away. But that bell's special tone made a permanent impression upon his mind. Years later, as he grew up, the memory of that bell stirred a restless urge within. It made him weary of the gypsy life. He longed to return to his rightful home. So he broke away from the gypsy camp and began his search. He wandered from country to country, village to village, listening intensely for the special ring of that single bell. He heard many peals as he journeyed along, but he always detected a false ring, and so refused to be lured away. The miracle method of psycho-pictography. Finally, while pausing by the roadside to rest, he heard a faintly familiar peal. He turned in its direction. The farther he walked, the more swiftly he stepped. Something within him knew that he was hearing his village bell at last, and he followed it all the way home. Likewise, the ring of truth is inside every person. And this is not something merely mystical or philosophical. It is a practical fact. If a person learns to listen, if he refuses to be lured away by false sounds, he will find his way home. The ring of truth will always be recognized by the person who listens. And everyone has the capacity to listen and to follow. You, the reader, have just received your first mental picture from this book. There will be many more. But first we want to discover what we mean by psychopictography, the dynamic science of mental pictures. The miracle method. Throughout the ages, a major challenge has confronted the great teachers of truth. It had to be met by philosophers, psychologists, scientists, and teachers of religion. That challenge is, by what method can the human mind be reached with the truth that sets it free? Offhand, this would seem to be no problem at all. We might answer, why, just tell people about the bright new life they can have. They will respond eagerly enough. Yet, we know from tragic evidence that this is not so. Even a brief glance at the headlines reveals that people have lost the ability to respond to self-enrichment. The human mind, far from welcoming advancement, resists it fiercely. The ego-centered self, fearing defeat at the hands of truth, fights back with every weapon it can frantically grasp. The mind, when faced with the very power that gives light and liberty, has invented a multitude of evasions, resistances, rationalizations, and counterfeits. Faced with this challenge, the great teachers of history developed ways and means to carry the truth beyond these mental barriers. They have discovered methods for giving people their first magnificent glimpse that leads to the true self. Of all these techniques, only one was widely used at all, and it was superbly successful. It worked. People took command of their own lives. Inner strength replaced weakness and fear. Problems unraveled. An entirely new self-identity appeared. Anger and anxiety turned to calm. Physical ailments vanished. Each new day, which formerly threatened another terror, now presented another conquest. Lives took on fresh meaning and permanent purpose. Regardless of the human problem, no matter how disastrous or how long it had lasted, a healing took place. The technique proved all-powerful. What was it? The mental picture. What is a mental picture? A mental picture is a scene played upon the screen of the mind. By means of a story or anecdote, the mind is helped to see a certain truth. For instance, we have just read The Adventure of the Swiss Shepherd. That story conveyed a picture to us. It impressed the intellect with a profound principle. The value of psychopictography or mental pictures is enormous. We shall see how and why as we go along. For one thing, the thinking process itself is largely a projection of mental scenes. That is why constructive visualizations are essential to our health and happiness. In this book, you will be presented with many stories and illustrations that create positive mental pictures. These illustrations are the means by which the truth reaches and enlightens the mind. We can call these illustrations by various names: stories, examples, case histories, analogies, anecdotes, even joke. But the purpose is single: to give the mind a constructive course of action to follow. They guide the individual into doing what is necessary in order to emerge with a new life. Say, for instance, that you have a difficult decision to make. As hard as you try, you cannot make up your mind. Then, you read an anecdote about someone in a similar situation. You discover how he handled it. Perhaps he gave up fighting his problem and simply relaxed from it. That action loosened his mental powers, enabling him to think in a new way. And the answer came to him. This person's success formed a mental picture in your mind. And now you have a clear and practical course to follow. We may not immediately understand a particular idea that can help us, but we can understand a mental picture that illustrates it. So the picture becomes a sturdy bridge. It helps us to cross over from the known to the unknown. It connects one level of understanding to a higher level. We ascend from a literal understanding to a psychological insight. The use of stories to convey a principle has another interesting advantage. Because they are pleasant to read, because we enjoy them, they permit passage of the truth with minimum of resistance. Stories are like friends who bring us unexpected gifts. How mental pictures work for you. An absorbed mental picture goes to work at once, transforms our thinking. Like a powerful current beneath the surface of the sea, it supplies energy and wisdom, even when we are not consciously aware of it. Quietly it works, giving us whatever we need for a conquest. This enormous secret was known and used by all the great teachers of history. The New Testament presented mental pictures by means of parables. Zen Buddhism did likewise with its anecdotes and analogies. Ancient wise men, like Socrates and Plato, taught with stories and legends. Modems, like Emerson and Thoreau, made full use of illustrations in their lectures and writings. Why? Because mental pictures speak a language that everyone understands. All of us are capable of forming mental images and of drawing meaning from them. Dr. Rainer C. Johnson explains, the great teachers have therefore always enlisted truth with most confidence to parables, which, because of their simplicity, picturesqueness and association with everyday life, are a thought form most likely to be remembered and least likely to be corrupted. Each man, then, can perceive that depth of truth to which he has a capacity to respond. All this is of thrilling significance. It means that anyone can start exactly where he or she is regardless of present knowledge or understanding, and go on to higher levels of fortune. A mental picture, once implanted, works ceaselessly and effortlessly. You have heard the ancients saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. We can modernize it by saying that a mental picture is worth 1,000 hours of effort. Let's review our discoveries about psychopictography. 1. We read a story or illustration or anecdote. 2. That story impresses a picture upon the mind about a successful course of action. 3. The mental picture becomes a permanent power that channels all our natural energies, emotions, desires, physical forces, and so on, into a similarly successful action. 4. We more and more develop the casual ability to succeed in our chosen areas. How soon will results appear? You may ask, how soon can I expect practical results from using mental pictures? Results arrive at once. The very moment a person reads a basic principle for loftier living, he or she experiences some kind of reaction to it. This reaction may be somewhat vague at first, but by sticking with it, a clearer recognition grows. Like looking into a mirror, you see who you are and what you can do with yourself. A typical remark of a person who is gaining more self-understanding is, "I'm not sure what is happening as yet, but it's definite and interesting." Change is certain. At first it may be in small ways. For instance, you are less upset by an unkind remark from someone. Or maybe you see that it is not selfish to live your life as you see fit. It is selfish only to insist that others live as you see fit. Life flows from the inner to the outer. Good changes you make in the inner self will reflect favorably in your outer activity. You can actually observe these exterior improvements as they take place. Your business activities take on a fresh look. Your relations with other people become smoother, as we shall see in later chapters. All this happens because your inner unity creates total power. A person with self-unity is like a river which was once divided by several islands, but which finally flows together again beyond them. Suppose it is 7 o'clock, and you want to catch a certain television program coming on at 8. You can tune your set to the correct channel now. Then, all you need do is wait for it to come to you. You can relax in the knowledge that you are correctly tuned in, that the program must eventually be yours to experience. You need have no care nor responsibility for its arrival. Finally, of its own accord and at the right time, your desire appears. Likewise, with rich results, as long as we are correctly tuned in, by using mental pictures, we need not concern ourselves at all with result. They arrive all by themselves, easily and naturally. In an earlier book, Secrets of Mental Magic, How to Use Your Full Power of Mind, I introduced the Mental Magic Party. This is a study group of men and women who wish to find themselves. Groups were formed throughout the nation. Many of the problems and questions examined in this book came from such group. The answers to these questions, and the results in practical life, are of value to you. At this point, I want to discuss with you the problem of confusion. As you go through these pages, do not be afraid to be confused. Confusion is an honest emotion. A person has broken well into the open when he or she can say, "I don't know," without being afraid of saying it. To realize that you don't know this or that is the beginning of new wisdom. For instance, it is not wrong to be puzzled about what you want from life, any more than it is wrong not to know what kind of food you want for dinner. It is never wrong to be either physically or psychologically hungry. What is wrong is to accept a piece of fruit without determining whether it is real or artificial. Do not shy away from a new idea that appears beyond your understanding. No principle is beyond human understanding. It cannot be. The truth, however veiled it may be at the present, already dwells within every man and woman. You need not understand the mechanical workings of an airplane in order to be carried aloft. Neither need you wholly grasp the pleasant changes that will take place within you. Let them happen. Relax with your study of Psycho-Pictography. Do not strain at understanding anything. Read with a sense of curiosity and exploration. See everything as good news. Enjoy the adventure. A story was written about a coastal village that was attacked time and again by great sea monsters. The villagers heard of a magician who could dissolve all kinds of evil simply by looking at it with his all-powerful gaze. Called to the village, he took a stand on a high cliff overlooking the sea. The next time the monsters appeared, he looked steadfastly at them, and they vanished forever. Any individual can become such a magician. If you will not be afraid of your own confusion, if you will continue to look until you see, all your negativities will vanish forever. Asked Martha B. A curious thing happens as I make progress. I always get more confused just before I actually see a truth for the first time. Why is this? You were really as confused as before. Only it was subconscious. You merely became more aware of your confusion. You brought it to the surface. You realized for the first time that you really didn't understand as much as you thought. This self-honesty led to genuine understanding and relief. Martha laughed. Yes, I've noticed what a relief it is to stop pretending. The reason why you can be happier. The reason why a person does not live happily is not because that state is non-existent. Also, it is not because happiness is unattainable. Furthermore, it is not because someone or something stands in the way. The reason why people fail to attain their rightful contentment is for a reason they rarely suspect. I would like you to read the next few paragraphs with special care. If you will grasp them, even just a bit, you will make more progress in seconds than perhaps you have made in years. People fail to attain personal liberation because they are unaware that such a state actually exists. People never go after something unless they at least suspect that it is real, that it is there. They must therefore become consciously aware, and if dimly at first, that an entirely new world exists for them. This new world has been proclaimed throughout the ages to unthinking mankind. It appears when a man or woman becomes receptive to esoteric knowledge, secret knowledge. It is secret only because millions of unhappy people will not receive and do not understand it. But you, the reader, can dare to be different. Then you will be different from the millions of unhappy people. You will know the truth that sets you free. You may be sure that we are not talking about anything remote or impractical. We are looking into a far superior way of life that you can find and enjoy today. The most tormenting and most carefully concealed fear is that there is no alternative road to the one which you now painfully endure. There is an alternative and an utterly peaceful one, but you must express a rebellious sort of courage in order to find it. You must deliberately abandon your so-called securities and start down a new road, as unfamiliar as it may be. By using the 4 golden keys, provided later, you will finally find what you seek. A new life of abundant cheer is found in one way and one way only. All others lead to endless anxiety. It is found through as awareness of its existence. This is the entire secret. We must catch a glimpse of this fresh life for ourselves. We can start by remembering that it exists within, not without. We already possess this higher state, but we must become aware of our rich possession. This awareness will break through, with increasing force, as we dare to seek it beyond our present mental attitudes. What prevents us from being aware? Our own resistances. We are afraid that if we let go of our present beliefs, as useless as they are, that the unknown might be even worse. But we must dare. And then we find that the very thing we feared was our very liberty. Suppose you tell a man that just over the hill there is a grand castle ready for his occupancy. He will want to believe you, but will be unable to do so. He has been fooled too many times by too many people. All his previous journeys have led to disappointment. He is not going to risk getting hurt again, so you really can't blame him for balking. Nevertheless, the castle actually exists, whether he ventures toward it or not. Claimed or not, it is always there, ready for him. Here we seem to have a major problem. The man will not walk toward the castle until he sees it. Yet he cannot see it until he walks toward it. No problem. There is a way out, and any person can take it. You must take the first step. Let's suppose that our man is willing to take the first hesitant step away from familiar ground, toward the castle he cannot see as yet. Suppose he willingly walks just far enough to catch his first glimpse of the castle. Maybe he sees only a tiny top corner. That is enough. He has seen something that makes him excited, curious, eager. Everything within him responds to that first grand glimpse with new vitality. So now he takes a few more forward steps, then some more, until he finally possesses the castle. It is his to occupy and enjoy. Sometimes, during the course of an ordinary day, we catch brief glimpses of this new life. It usually comes with sudden delight. One instance was related by a class member. I was driving down the street feeling angrily aggressive. The morning had gone all wrong. My anger transferred itself to my driving. I felt like plowing through traffic without regard for anyone. I came to an intersection at the same time as another driver. I was about to plunge ahead, my turn or not, when an amazing thing happened. The other driver smiled pleasantly and waved me on. 3 blocks later it struck me like lightning. That person was living in an entirely different world than I. I was overwhelmed with the fantastic truth that there is another way to live. You will find, as you go along, that mental pictures help you catch your first glimpse of your own grand castle. How to use Operation Tossaway. How does an alert awareness solve daily difficulties? Let's take a familiar problem that was expressed by someone. Doctors and psychologists declare that a person has all the natural energies he or she needs. If this is so, why are there so many tired people, including myself? The fable is told of the traveler staggering down the road with a rock in one hand and a brick in the other. On his back was a sack of earth, and around his waist was wound a long coil of vines. On his head was balanced a heavy pumpkin. Along the way he met a villager who asked, "Weary traveler, why burden yourself with that big rock?" "That's odd," replied the traveler, "but I never really noticed it before." So he tossed the rock aside and felt much better. Along came another villager who inquired, "Tell me, weary traveler, why wear yourself out with that heavy pumpkin?" "I'm glad you pointed it out," said the traveler, "because I didn't realize what I was doing to myself." So he knocked the pumpkin off his head and went on his way with a much lighter step. One by one, the villagers made him aware of his needless burdens. So one by one, he abandoned them. Finally, he was a free man and walked like one. What, really, was his problem? The rock and the pumpkin? Not really. It was his unawareness of them. Once he saw them as pointless burdens, he dropped them soon enough and was no longer tired. That is the daily problem of many people. They are carrying unnoticed loads. No wonder they are tired. What are some of these loads that burden a person's mind and steal his or her energy? Negative thoughts, blaming and accusing others, permitting gloomy impressions to nap in our mind, carrying a load of false guilt for things we couldn't help, new pity, believing that there is no way out. Everyone has their own special brand of energy-robbing burdens. The sooner we start Operation Toss Away, the sooner we will feel better and walk lighter. This is your secret for achieving happiness. This brings us to a vital truth that you will meet many times in this book. Inner freedom is not a matter of adding anything, it is purely a ridding process. Here is one of the most startling and rewarding ideas you could ever grasp. Suppose you once had a path across a meadow, but one day found it overgrown with weed. To restore it, you would not create anything, rather, you would remove something. As the shrubs and weeds are cleared away, the path appears. So it is with the mind. We need not try to create anything, for there is nothing that needs to be created. Freedom is already present, though perhaps as yet unseen. Our mental weeds are made up of negative imaginations, fearful attitudes, unrealistic ideas, an insistence that we already know the answers, and so on. As self-understanding removes them, as it always does, we see the path for the first time. That puts us on the forward march. As simple as this idea is, it eludes us. Therefore, we must think about it, review it. We are in the habit of thinking in terms of building, adding, constructing, while all the time our freedom lies in the opposite direction. Happiness is a ridding process. In discussing various steps to freedom, Professor Edwin A. Burt writes, "Next, we clearly recognize that the way to truth and blessedness does not lie in creating anything that does not now exist, nor in acquiring anything that is not now at hand. We need only remove ignorance. Insight into the truth then dawns. Your 4 golden rules to new freedom and happiness. There are 4 golden keys for discovering the true self, the self that is free and happy. They are: 1. A sincere desire for inner change. 2. Contact with workable principles. 3. Self-honesty. 4. Persistence. 1. A sincere desire for inner change. You must really want to be different. Your first desire should be for the truth itself, not for ideas that please you by backing up what you already believe. Earnest individuals dare to sail uncharted seas. When they finally reach port, they find that this new world, though strange at first, is what they really sought all along. I should say sincerity, a deep, great, genuine sincerity, is the first characteristic of all men in any way heroic. Thomas Carlyle. 2. Contact with workable principles. This means we must be in contact with some source of genuine help. It can be a person who has already set himself at liberty, it can be a book, or it can be our own matured way of thinking. We must beware of counterfeits. We must not accept something as true merely because it appeals to us. We must make every offered idea prone itself to be a workable principle. We must personally verify everything. 3. Self-honesty. Genuine courage consists in being honest with oneself. The really heroic person is willing to be wrong for the present in order to be right later on. But honesty does not mean that you change your viewpoints merely for the sake of change. It means you explore your viewpoints in order to separate truth from falsity. Then, truth dissolves falsity. There is nothing of more practical use than self-honesty. 4. Persistence. A person may be sincere, and she may have found a source of genuine help. And she may also have a full supply of self-honesty. By adding one more thing, she has all she needs for swift strides forward. It is that old-fashioned and admirable quality we call persistence. People must keep going. As the New Testament phrases it, they must not fall by the wayside. Persistence pays. Whenever people tell me that their way is blocked by discouragement or confusion, I say to check over the 4 golden keys. It's not long before they find the barrier at their back, and they are on the open highway once more. You can do the same. How to use the transfer technique. In the business world, Leonard E. had achieved money and prestige that was not matched by inner wealth. He had, however, arrived at that stage of honest inquiry where he asked, "What's wrong? I feel that the answer nearby, but I just can't grasp it. How do I find this inner richness you speak about? I could just catch a clue or two, I believe I could go on from there. What's the missing link?" Imagine yourself at your office desk. Suppose you become aware of something wrong in your business operations. For instance, let's say that your methods for attracting new customers are not working out. What would you do? Would you try to deceive yourself that all is well? Not at all. It would be too costly. Then you'd face the realities of the situation, even if it means changing your viewpoints. Of course, you can't make money by avoiding economic realities. You wouldn't resist a new program that looked good? I'd investigate it with enthusiasm. How would you know that you were on the right track at last? There's only one way, by actual results, when sales really increase, when the situation definitely changes from bad to good. How about persistence? How long would you continue to work with this new program? All the time. All the way. I'd stick with a winner. All right, why not apply the same realistic principles to your inner life? Sounds like a good idea. Learn to see the parallel between business success and personal happiness. It might sound strange at first, but both are based on the very same fundamental realism and honesty and persistence. And I'm not using those in my personal life? No, I guess not. Otherwise, I'd have the results I want. Be utterly practical. Transfer these business principles to your inner life. Call it the transfer technique. You'll get results. Leonard succeeded. He couldn't fail. And neither can anyone else who uses the transfer technique. Just find some area of everyday life where you have already succeeded, such as a talent for music. A close look will show that the 4 golden keys made it possible. Now transfer them to an inner area where you want a new success, such as trying to understand yourself better. You will transfer your success also. Quick review of Chapter 1. 1. Remember the story of the Swiss shepherd. 2. Psycho-Pictography is a tested technique for giving fresh meaning and permanent purpose to your life. 3. A mental picture is created in your mind by reading a story, illustration, or case history. 4. You can start exactly where you are to benefit from the dynamic method of Psycho-Pictography. 5. Let results come naturally and effortlessly. 6. Study Psycho-Pictography with a relaxed mind. 7. Dare to take the first step toward your rightful castle. 8. Happiness comes as we toss away needless negatives. 9. Let the 4 golden keys supply you with accurate guidance. 10. The transfer technique works wonders. The one way to get something for nothing. It is said that the best things in life are free. They are. That is why you must stop trying to pay for them with anxious effort and unnatural strain. Some wise individual realize that hard work, all by itself, is no virtue. They are the alert ones. They see the difference between anxious striving and natural coasting. Anxious effort gives you nothing for something. Natural effort, effort harmonized with the natural laws of life, gives you something for nothing. One task of Psycho-Pictography is to show you that the easy way is the right way. It does not appeal to an unrealistic desire to get something for nothing. It tries to show everybody that they inwardly possesses everything they need, but do not consciously know it. You need not strive to create contentment or energy or friendships or anything else. You need only to claim them. You need not struggle. You need only realize. Your lamp is already lighted, and you need only to remove its covering. Writes philosopher Meher Baba, it must be impressed constantly upon humanity that the real birthright of each man and woman is to achieve his own original freedom, that it can be achieved, and that sooner or later it must be achieved. Without this, there is no lasting escape from the day-to-day problems. Suppose you knew that a map to a fabulous treasure had been taken to a mountain peak, torn and scattered to the 4 winds. You would, of course, search for the piece, but would you strain anxiously at every step, or would you enjoy the adventure? Would you be gloomy, or would you step cheerfully around knowing that the treasure raw be found? You would be excited, but at the same time relaxed. Your treasures of contentment and energy and everything else are yours to find. That is what this chapter, in fact the entire book, is all about. Making your mind your best friend. Throughout these pages, we will be meeting terms such as awareness, understanding, perception of truth, higher fields of consciousness, and other similar terms. It is important to define them. For maximum clarity, I will phrase the definition in 3 different ways. Simply remember that they all mean the same thing. Awareness or understanding or perception of truth means to see something new, something we have never inwardly grasped up to now. Or to so understand an idea that it is no longer intellectual knowledge, but an internally operating fact. Or to actually see a false attitude or viewpoint as false, and a mirthful viewpoint as truthful. When we were children, we had certain attitudes toward life. For example, that our parents should buy us every toy in the store window. As our understanding developed, that unrealistic attitude was replaced by genuine understanding. We were, therefore, free from a frustrating demand for toys. That is a simple example of the difference between a mere attitude and a mature understanding. Let's take another misunderstanding, common to many people, relating to the mind. People do not realize that the mind can actually be transformed into something entirely different from a mechanically reacting machine. What may now be a person's worst enemy can be amazingly changed into his or her best friend. The very mind that may now be confused or angry or frustrated can be turned into something clear, creative, cheery, unafraid. Misunderstanding is like a loosely built brick wall. Remove a key brick or two and the whole false structure collapses, enabling you to see beyond to a previously unknown empire. Sometimes a simple statement of truth is enough to crack open a new world of awareness. I once asked a troubled man, "Did it ever occur to you that life might be good, and that you simply do not see it?" He later reported, "That was like switching on a light bulb that had been out for years." One of the greatest contributions of psychopictography is a new understanding. A positive mental picture attacks and destroys illusions and irritating imaginations. If we are personally to find this wonderful new life, a new understanding is essential. We must discover who we really are, what we can actually do for ourselves, how we can change and brighten what we may now consider hopeless. The first heroic step towards self-knowledge is the quiet admission that we presently do not know ourselves very well. Self-honesty is self-power. Armed with it, we can dash courageously into the adventure of self-discovery, certain of victory. Try this for an encouraging truth: no sincere effort towards self-understanding is ever lost. It remains as an energizing force. This is such an inspiring idea that I want to repeat it once glimpsed: a truth can never be lost. Knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. Alfred Lord Tennyson. It is like viewing a spacious, beautiful countryside as you pass in your car. Once seen, it can never be unseen. Whether you are consciously aware of it or not, it remains to guide and inspire. Picture yourself standing in a long, dark hall with dozens of windows covered by drapes. You pull aside one of the drapes to gain a bit of light as well as a first glimpse of the lovely world outside. You uncover a second window to have even more light and land. You pull aside more and more drapes, permitting additional clarity and perception. That illustrates the positive pleasure of awareness, of inner perception. Work to gain more. Understanding is the golden touch that transforms you and your world. Understanding has a very distinct feeling. It is a unique process. It changes you, internally and outwardly, into the kind of person you want to be. How to achieve natural happiness? I would like, said Morton H., a clear picture of the change from unhappiness to happiness. Can you give us an example of how we reclaim our happy true self? It is the lightening of inner loads you are now unconsciously carrying around. Most people are not aware of all the useless burdens that wear them down. Like negative emotions? And fearful imaginations and frozen attitude. As you become conscious of these pointless burdens, you drop them. Remember, people don't consciously or knowingly burden themselves. They don't see what they are doing to themselves. I have a glimpse of that, commented Morton. I once saw the folly of always rushing around, of inventing useless activities just to keep my mind distracted. I saw that I wasn't rushing toward anything, but rather away from my unhappy self. Now I've learned to like my own company. But you said that we must lighten these negative loads. Yes. Picture it like this: you are flying in an airplane carrying excessive cargo. It wobbles, stalls, dips dangerously toward Earth. You looked into the problem. You see that the danger is not in the natural power of the plane, but in the unwise overloading. So you drop a few crates. The airplane rises, becomes a bit steadier. You drop more crates. The craft responds by rising higher and flying smoother. Finally, you rid it of all unwise cargo. Now you have a swift and safe flight. That is what we can do for our own natural happiness. We can lighten ourselves. We must become aware of our totally unnecessary loads of negativity. As we do, we toss them overboard. Then we soar freely and securely. The authors of Zen Buddhism and psychoanalysis express the same idea like this. To become conscious of the unconscious means to overcome repressedness and alienation from myself, and hence from the stranger. It means to wake up, to shed illusions, afflictions, and lies, to see reality as if is. The man who wakes up is the liberated man, the man whose freedom cannot be restricted either by others or by himself. The process of becoming aware of that which one was not aware of constitutes the resolution of man. It is the true awakening which is at the root of both creative intellectual thought and intuitive immediate grasp. Recognizing your true self versus your false self. It is essential to understand that everyone has both a true self and a false self. Nothing is more important to investigate and to understand than this. The stronger the true self, the happier and more productive the individual in every department of life. To the degree that the false self dominates, to that same extent a person is frustrated, the more he or she feels life empty and futile. The true self is the essential you. It is entirely free of all negative emotions, such as panic and despair. You were born with the true self. It is the real you. It can never be lost, though it may be presently dominated by the false self. The false self is the cause of every trouble you have. You must try to see this. When you do see it, you will never again blame yourself or anyone else for anything that happens. Because you are no longer identified with the false self, that is, because you no longer take it as you simply see that two acted unwisely or angrily or even foolishly. The false self is merely your acquired attitudes and beliefs. It is not the real you. The false self has been called by many names. The New Testament refers to it as the old nature. A modem psychologist would call it the negatively conditioned self. When we say that someone acts egotistically, we are referring to a feature of the false self. All mental, emotional, and physical action springing from the false self does damage. All action arising from the true self enriches you. Question: how does all this connect with personal happiness? Answer: the entire process of becoming happy consists in gradually weakening the false self so that the true self regains its rightful position in your life. The false self is always unhappy. The true self is never anything but happy. Back in 1904, a scientist named A.Y.L. Vernon invented synthetic rubies. They were so similar to natural rubies that they nearly knocked the bottom out of the market for the natural gems. Nobody could tell the difference. The world of commercial rubies was thrown into panic and confusion. Finally, some gem experts took their instruments and went to work on the synthetic stones. They made an interesting discovery. Deep down inside the man-made gems were some defects consisting of tiny bubbles. They broadcast their discovery. Instantly, the price of natural rubies soared to its original high mark. Now that it was possible to tell the difference between the artificial and the real, no one wanted the false gems. Everyone desired the real, the natural, the genuinely valuable rubies. That is how we can go at it. We can take courage to look deeply inside ourselves. Then we will see the difference between our real and our artificial personalities. Once we see it, once we really see if, we no longer value false ideas or attitude. We want only the valuable emotions, the enriching thoughts, the beneficial interests and peaceful desires. Remember, it is awareness of the difference between the two that gets us on the right track. You now possess both the intelligence and the inclination to liberate yourself from the bondage of the false self. Even if you have doubts, you need not fear them. Even if you feel helpless, you need not hesitate. Even if you don't know what to do, you need not despair. Your true self always knows just what to do, even when you don't. Why not listen when it speaks? You lack nothing. Everything you need for a rich and abundant life is already supplied. You have them now. These ideas given by me at a lecture produce the following question from a man with a puzzled frown: but if we have everything we need, why don't we experience them in a practical way? Take our energies. Why do I tire so easily? Not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. It's not just me. Almost everyone complains of weariness. You say that we lack nothing. I don't understand. Will you please explain? The only valid tiredness is that normal, physical weariness you have after working hard. All else is totally unnecessary. When you experience normal physical tiredness, bedtime is welcome. But not so with emotional fatigue. Facing bedtime is a nightly nightmare with millions of emotionally worn-out people. That's because they know they face another sleepless night. But what about all this rich energy? How can we experience it in our daily affairs? First, by being aware of how you yourself waste your natural supply. Then, by knowing how to stop it. How do we waste ourselves? With negative emotions. You get up in the morning with a fresh supply of strength. Then, you get upset over a spilled cup of coffee. Already you have lost vital power. Late, you angrily reflect on how badly someone treated you. More loss. That evening you worry over a domestic problem. And so it goes. One negative feeling after another, each draining away your strength and good humor. No wonder you're tired. How can we stop exhausting ourselves? By thinking in a new way toward everything that happens. And I mean everything. Remember, regardless of what happens, you need not respond with life-robbing emotions. A principal aim of our meetings is to retrain the mind so that it thinks in a new way. When this happens, natural energies are retained for constructive purposes. Strength and energy are but two examples of something for nothing. You have no lack of energy whatsoever. You can experiment heroically with this truth by refusing to go along with the temptation to become negative. Try it. Just try it. You will delightfully discover that you really have the strength to refuse to lose your strength. Speaking of a man with such wise heroism, author Colin Wilson writes, he comes to recognize the energy-stealing emotions, and he sets out to exterminate them in himself. As he moves toward his objective, he increases his powers of foresight and hindsight. There is a breaking free of the body's sense of imprisonment in time and raising warmth of life energy that is spoken of in the Gospel as to have life more abundantly. At this point, I want to give you one of the most amazing of all mental pictures. This section should receive extra attention as you review this book. Give its ideas time to work. You will then discover that you are really a mental millionaire. Picture a woman standing outside a bank. In her conversations with other people, she remarks that she has $1 million on deposit in the bank. But she really doesn't believe it. She is merely trying to convince herself and others that she is a millionaire. Next, picture that woman stepping inside the bank to transact some small business. To her surprise and joy, she is told that she actually has $1 million in her account. It is an inheritance that she had carelessly ignored for many years. She discovers that she really is the very millionaire she pretended to be. That is our strange position in the world. We pretend that we are happy or wise or peaceful, but secretly feel that it is all a fake. But here is one of the most delightfully startling thoughts you will ever meet. Every person really is a mental millionaire. We really do possess happiness and wisdom and peace. But we never know it as a personal experience because we indulge in the utterly fantastic act of pretending to be something that we really are. This makes clear the need for dropping all pretenses in order to find the true self. People are afraid to stop pretending because they fear that behind it lies only emptiness. But behind it lies richness, the real kind. The situation can also be compared with a beautiful woman who wears a beautiful hat because she doesn't realize that she herself is really beautiful. If she took courage enough to drop the mask, she would find her lonely true self. Asked someone, "Why do we fail to make this claim?" Because you think that pretense is all you have, all that exists. You mistakenly assume that you would be impoverished without it. But you can change. You can think and see differently. Get emotionally aggressive against these pretenses that cheat you of the real thing. Rebel against your own stage acting. Claim your true self now. Then you will see that you really are a mental millionaire and were one all along. I want to break into the text of this book to talk personally for a moment with you, the reader. Perhaps, as you have read along, a certain question has arisen in your mind. Many people ask this particular question in letters and at meetings. I'd like to discuss it with you. It goes like this: Mr. Howard, I am sometimes confused about my purpose in studying these ideas. Why am I working at self-understanding, at changing my attitudes, at dropping false beliefs? What is the value? Why should I work? Why persist? In other words, what is the point of it all? The point is very simple. In fact, it is so simple that many people miss it. The point is to find the way you really want to live. You want a brighter tomorrow. That is the point. You want control of your own life. That is the point. You want to avoid mistakes, to live with simplicity, to have abundant energy, to be youthful, to be free of pressure, to know who you are, to be unafraid. That is the point of it all, and you can have it all. Don't complicate things by thinking that there is any other point. There isn't. Be practical. See clearly and directly that the entire point is to have what you really want. As you read this book, stick to this single point. Then, you will have what you really want. I hope this doesn't sound like a silly question, said Norman E. But what should I do about a problem when I haven't the slightest idea of what to do? Why do anything at all? Well, don't we have to take action? The problem won't solve itself, will it? It will, once you know the secret. Sometimes the correct action is no action at all. Inaction can be a creative process. It can lead to a surprising solution. For instance, instead of supplying an answer, it dissolves the very problem. You see, we are so anxious to do something about a problem. We don't like the tension and the suspense. We will do almost anything to settle the matter one way or another. But this leads to poor judgments and impulsive actions that only deepen the difficulty. Yes, I've seen that happen more than once. Work at not doing the things you usually do. If your habitual actions fail to clear the air, why continue with them? Strike out in an entirely new direction. That is, don't do the usual things that lead to the usually unhappy result. Give your mind a chance to clear itself. Don't be so eager to get a result. The answer is already within you, but you won't see it as long as you chase frantically around looking for it. It's like trying to recover a coin resting at the bottom of a pool. If you anxiously splash around, you cannot see it. But if you wait, if you remain alertly inactive, if you cease to stir the water, the coin will become visible. Then, the very seeing of it is the same thing as its recovery. Could we call it the power of doing nothing? Yes. See the process as constructive inaction. Can you give a practical example of all this? Suppose a man has domestic problems. There are family quarrels that keep everyone unhappy. He becomes aware that his usual actions, perhaps attempts to dominate others, are useless. They only increase the difficulty. So he wisely stops using this wrong method. He drops it as inadequate. Now, the quietness produced by this riot doing will give him clearer insight. He might see, for the first time, that it is far more important to have a happy home than to be a domestic dictator. All this is a major secret of this book. We must replace habitual action with fresh insight. By not doing the usual, we discover the unusual that clears our difficulties. Do not strive to seek the true, wrote a Zen teacher, only cease to cherish opinions. This confirms a point covered in other pages. Freedom is a shedding process. We need only set aside the false opinions we have about ourselves and about the world in which we live. Then, having made room for truth, it comes. How to be a pro. Have you ever noticed the similarity between a detective novel and the mystery of life? The idea makes an interesting excursion. A detective story begins relatively peacefully. The stage is set and the hero or heroine is brought on stage. You then meet various characters who revolve around the hero in major or minor roles. There are good and bad people. You meet characters whom you like and others whom you suspect of being other than they pretend to be. Trouble arrives. Someone gets a poison pen letter. A young woman is attacked on a lonely road. Strange sounds drift down from the attic. A fleeting figure is barely seen as it darts behind a statue in the dark garden. Someone screams. And somewhere, in the dim shadows, lurks the criminal behind it all. Sly and skillful, he possesses a high but evil intellect. When attacking the hero, his method is stealth, and his purpose is destruction. He operates by boldness and bluff. For a while, the hero is confused, but not disheartened. Because he gets tired of taking it, because he resolves to no longer live in fear, he goes into action. He rebels against his own complacency and directs all that rebellious energy against the lurking criminal. At first, the clues are meager, but he persists. He tracks down clues, studies human nature, forces himself to strike out in new directions. The clues pay off. He recognizes a familiar voice and locates a hidden room. Finally, the hero wins. The criminal is exposed. The novel ends happily. In life, the hero is the true self. The false self is the destructive criminal. In the novel, the hero always wins. In life, the true self can always win if it persists. Individuals wanting to solve their inner mysteries need only start with what few clues they have, or none at all. At the start of a mystery novel, you never ask the outcome. Likewise, in life you need never wonder whether there exists a happy solution to your problem. It is there, if you only know it, if only you will plunge heroically after the clues. How to dissolve disappointments. The purpose of Psycho-Pictography is to empower you to think on a newer and higher level, to change your values and viewpoints, to cast aside unworkable ideas, and to think from practical ones. This, whether one presently realizes it or not, is what really changes everything wonderfully. So let's take a very common problem of life and see how Larry G. changed his life by changing his thoughts. What, he asked, about the little daily disappointments that we all have? Can they be abolished? I have no overwhelming problems, just a series of little nagging ones. You know what I mean, someone makes a promise and then breaks his word. I don't understand how a fresh viewpoint can cancel out disappointments, but I want to find out. All right, please follow. The fact is, someone breaks his promise to you. I assure you that it is not the bare fact of that broken promise that hurts. The disappointment comes when your mind adds something to that fact. The fact has no power to hurt you, it's your mental addition that does the damage. Please explain. He breaks his promise to you. That is the bare fact. It cannot hurt you in any way whatsoever. But your mind quickly adds something to that fact. For instance, you might think that he doesn't value you enough to keep his word. Or you might suspect that he's trying to cheat you out of something. Again, you might indignantly think that here is just another instance of how unfair the world is to you. Larry, who had attended meetings, smiled and asked, "Is that the pride and vanity of the false self?" That is a very good observation. Your insight is growing. Yes, the false self demands a certain behavior from others. When others don't agree, it becomes disappointed, even enraged. Of course, the person living in the false self hasn't the faintest idea of how he harms himself. Larry faithfully worked with the idea, see the bare fact, but don't add to it. He found, of course, great changes and reported, "There are no longer any disappointments, only events." You, too, can dissolve disappointments by not mentally adding to your daily event. Just as all the colors necessary for a beautiful painting are present in the artist's palette, so do you now possess everything needed for a wonderful life. You can become the skilled artist who paints a new life picture for himself. Such artistic ability is natural to you. 1. The easy way is the right way. 2. Understanding is one of the greatest forces on earth. Build your understanding. 3. You can change into the kind of person you want to be. Let Psycho-Pictography aid you. 4. Review the enormously beneficial ideas about the true self and the false self. 5. Your true self knows all the answers you need. 6. Recognize your richness of natural energy. Get rid of strength-robbing negativities. 7. You are now a mental millionaire. 8. The point of your life is to live the way you really want to live. 9. Discover the marvelous technique of doing nothing. It is a surprising power for success. 10. Dissolve disappointment with the technique supplied in this chapter. Life's crises. People don't live their particular kind of life because they like it. They live as they do because they think there is nothing better. Pause and consider this idea. A tremendous clue to lofty living is hidden within. The purpose of Psycho-Pictography is to show you how to make a grand reversal. Instead of thinking there is nothing better, you will actually live in that superior state. Let's start with the inquiry. Will you please clarify the state of the unhappy person? I mean, tell us about the inner conditions that keep us ruining from one painful crisis to the next. The inner state of a troubled person can be described in many ways, but they all mean the same thing. Here are a few. He possesses inner contradiction that he can neither endure nor escape. She has lost touch with her true self. He fails to see that the torture of himself is by himself. She wanders from one false trail to another. He walks in nightmarish sleep. A woman in my audience smiled. "That describes me exactly," she said. "Can you also summarize the way out of this nightmare? Could we have some short and meaningful points?" Honestly face your inner contradictions. Don't pretend they don't exist. Have the courage to strike out in the new directions whispered by your true self. Dare to take your own life into your own hand. Stop conforming. Don't let inner pressures goad you into unwise decisions. Dare to abandon your rigid ways of thinking. Walk forward with the simple truth that the good life awaits you. Let's take one of the above ideas for special study. It has secret power for preventing a personal crisis. Don't let inner pressures glad you into unwise decisions. Let's suppose that you come to a fork in your mental road where you must make a decision. This is the unfortunate choice that many people make. They are interested only in immediate relief, not final accuracy. But you must not do this. A decision based on relief alone is almost always against your best interests. It not only fails to settle the immediate crisis but tends to create more problems. It pyramids the original crisis. It also causes regret, as reported by one woman. "I used to buy my clothes impulsively, just to get them out of my mind. The minute I got home I regretted my choice. Now I'm wiser. If I don't really know what I want, I buy nothing." Be aware that indecision is a pressure. Don't make a decision merely to relieve that pressure. Be wise. Wait. Be calm. Don't rush impulsively to get it done. Don't race for the nearest answer. Let the right answer come to you. It will. Someone asked, "Please give us an example of unclear thinking toward a course of action." Thinking that a new course of action is better when it is only different. That's like deciding that it is better to jump into a swamp than into a bog. The wise man or woman jumps into neither. Your inner self, your true self, knows all the answers. It never makes a mistake. This is an absolute fact, whether you realize it or not. It is good to realize it. Find this all-wise true self, and you will never again face a decision crisis. Not only that, but what pleasure you have in your own company. Here is how Dr. Eric from explains the process. Only those qualities that result from our spontaneous activity give strength to the self and thereby forms the basis of its integrity. The inability to act spontaneously, to express what one genuinely feels and thinks, and the resulting necessity to preset a pseudo-self to others and oneself, are the root of the feeling of inferiority and uniqueness. Whether or not we are aware of it, there is nothing of which we are more ashamed than of not being ourselves, and there is nothing that gives us greater pride and happiness than to think, to feel, and to say what is ours. Don't be your usual, habitual, repetitious thoughts. Be yourself. There is, a great difference in the two. As you know, an earthquake occurs whenever a fault in the earth shifts suddenly. The sliding of an unsettled section beneath the surface jolts everything above. An earthquake is caused by a false foundation. That is similar to what happens when a human being gets jolted by a personal crisis. The subconscious areas of the mind rest on a faulty foundation, so any sudden crisis causes upheaval. It jolts the individual into damaging behavior, including nervousness and distress. Happily, there is a major difference between a physical earthquake and a psychological one. The human earthquake has a sure cure. The fault can be removed. A person need not live in fear of periodic disturbance. He or she can be settled upon the foundation of psychological reality. I want to give you a superb example of this. It relates to the question of personal morality. No other crisis causes so much painful anxiety and useless guilt. The question came up, I'm confused about morality. What, exactly, is right and what is wrong? I have a strong urge to break away from my habitual life. What about this urge? Is it immoral? Why don't you go ahead and break away? Why not live the way you really want to? I'd like to, but... Would you like to hear why you don't? Several people called, yes. You have a false sense of morality. Society has imposed upon you its hypocritical standards of conduct, which you fearfully take as true. This makes you feel guilty, anxious, afraid. Society sets up an ideal, like a tall stone statue, then tells you to look like that. But you can't maintain your inner integrity and look like that. The statue is idealistic nonsense. Then, when you fail to hold that statue-like pose, you feel guilty and resentful. All statues are evasions of genuine morality. They are illusions. No one can live up to an illusion. Don't fall for demands to be unselfish. Another hypocritical morality is when other people press upon you a false sense of duty. They tell you what you owe them. Think, then tell you what you owe them. Don't fall for it. The simple truth is, they want something from you, though they call it by a noble name. You owe them nothing. Your first duty is toward yourself, your inner freedom. That is the same as saying that your first duty is toward the truth. A woman asked, this is off the point somewhat, but what attitude should we have toward people who planted those false ideas in our mind, who used us for their own selfish purposes? Simply see that they are asleep. Someone misinformed them, just as they misinformed you. So there is no one to blame. But once you see that you were fed false ideas, it is your heroic responsibility to smash the painful pattern. Don't pass it on to your children if you really love them. Then what is genuine morality? How should we behave? Never do anything that harms either yourself or another person. This idea is deeper than you think. Unawakened people don't realize the harm that goes on. You must wake up. Then you are happy at last. Raise your level of thinking. Uplift your viewpoints. Climb the ladder of self-understanding. Ascend to a higher state of awareness. Glimpse the loftier world. That is what we have been covering together, time and time again, throughout these pages. Why all this emphasis on lifting yourself, rather than working on surrounding circumstances? Because you make your circumstances whatever they are. You live in both a material and a psychological world of your own creation. This means that you can create a new world for yourself that is free from crisis and difficulty. You can move up to a trouble-free level. You really can. We have a perfect illustration. The citizens of a village in a deep valley were troubled. Floods regularly swept down the valley to carry away their homes and livestock. Great boulders from the mountain slopes thudded into their streets, and yards their children stumbled into the marshes. It was a hard life, but the only one they knew. But one day a man with insight came to town. He told them, "The problem is not the floods and boulders and marshes. The problem is you. You are unnecessarily living on a low level." "An unnecessary low level?" they echoed. "Yes. Try to understand. Your low level involves you in one crisis after another. As long as you dwell down here, you will have trouble. Raise yourself. Problems will cease to happen." "Show us how," they pleaded. So the man with insight showed them how to build homes above the valley and on the mountain slope. Some built new homes a short way above the level of the valley. Others, more wise, built new homes far up the mountainside. "Now," said the man with insight, "you will experience the trouble-free life. By moving your residence, you have removed the problems." "Yes," someone remarked, "how clear it now is." "I wonder," someone else added, "why we didn't see it before?" Remember that story. It points the way to freedom from difficulties of every kind. There is no crisis in your life that a higher level of thinking cannot cure. Prove it for yourself. How to know that you want? "What," I asked the meeting one night, "is your single greatest problem?" The answers came: to avoid making mistakes. "I think I feel too much guilt." "To find more leisure time." "I don't know what I want from life." "To earn more money." "I want people to leave me alone." "My greatest problem is women." The last one, spoken by a real estate agent, made everyone laugh. But, by mutual consent, we chose to discuss the fourth problem: I don't know what I want from life. How can you know what you want? Happily, the problem solves itself as you continue with Psycho-Pictography. How come? Because all your wants and desires and wishes and ambitions are based on the way you think. But as you learn to think differently, from a high level of understanding, your desires change. They become more mature and realistic, but this does not mean that they give you less satisfaction, rather they are far more pleasurable. Why? Because they now serve your best interests, not your ego-centered interests. "I see that perfectly," commented a woman down front. "I used to agonize over my ambition to be a famous singer. That served my ego interest but not my best interest. Now I'm content to sing whenever invited, but I'm no longer offended whenever I'm not asked." Imagine yourself surrounded by a crowd of people. A dozen voices shout at once, telling you what you want. They insist that you want fame, fortune, power, and so on. You spin around, believing each voice in turn. No wonder you're bewildered. But you get tired of all the shouting, so you slowly walk away. The voices become fainter and fainter. Finally, for the first time in your life, you hear yourself. And now, great day, this inner voice tells you what you really want from life. Let me ask you a question now that you can hear your inner voice. What does it tell you that you want? How not thinking helps. Next, I want to give you a startling technique for handling any kind of crisis. It may be entirely new to you. Its value cannot be overestimated. The next time you run into a crisis, don't be afraid not to think about it. Don't let your thoughts chase around in circles in a frantic attempt to catch an answer. This is an extremely profound idea, so let's explore it together carefully. A problem existing on the level of conditioned thinking cannot be solved by conditioned thinking. A problem cannot be solved on its own level. It cannot be done any more than you can lift yourself by pulling upward on your legs. Something higher, something outside yourself, must be contacted. That something is awareness. Awareness does far more than supply a temporary answer to a crisis. It dissolves it once and for all. A business acquaintance of mine was worried whether or not he should buy a certain piece of property. He became aware of his real motive for wanting it. It would please his vanity. Since that wasn't a practical reason, he didn't buy. His self-awareness solved his problem and possibly saved him from financial loss. Here is what we must do: we must get our usual, conditioned, limited thoughts out of the way. We must become mentally silent. That silence leaves room for the voice of wisdom from within. Nothing is more practical in everyday affairs than this inner voice. By refusing to chase around mentally, you gradually weaken the power of useless thoughts. False ideas can be compared with a huge fan whirling at furious speed. It blows out a destructive gale. But if you don't empower that wheel, it slows down, loses its destructive force. So don't be afraid to not think about a difficulty. It is really strange the fear people have of not thinking. They are hypnotized by a problem. People get anxious when urged to abandon their habitual thought processes. They assume there is nothing better. But there is. There is awareness. See Chapter 10 for more details on the difference between thought and awareness. This kind of not thinking is not an evasion of the difficulty, but a receptivity to a new way of seeing it. You can, if you like, consider awareness as a higher form of thinking. What superiority! It is like an invisible rope overhead. You can reach up and swing over every crisis. Instead of colliding with daily events, you swing easily over them. Nothing need bother you. A magazine article tells about Baron Manfred von Richthofen, the German air act of World War I. As commander of the famous flying circus, he instructed his pilots, "Keep your head and eyes moving around. Be awake to everything. You must never be caught unaware." This does not mean you should be afraid. It means you should be alert. That is how to have a safe flight. This is a good parallel to how we must fly. We need not be anxious about anything, but we must be alert to everything. Alert to what? To opportunities for clearing our lives of everything bothersome. If we take these daily opportunities, we can uplift ourselves before our very eyes. For instance, alertness toward our reactions of rich profit. Let's see how it cleared the air for Ralph E. Ralph occupied a desk in a large insurance office. He described his situation. "I'd give anything to break the string of disturbances down at the office. You know what I mean. Someone demands a certain report right now. Someone else drops by to ask why I handled a matter the way I did. To top it all, the company restaurant is out of my favorite dessert." Ralph laughed. "I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I just wonder why I have to put up with one bother after another." "You really don't." "How come?" "I can't change these outer events. You can stop reacting to them the way you do. You may not grasp it as yet, but the events themselves don't bother you. It's your own way of reacting. Try to be aware of how you take things. See that the bother is in you, not in the incident. This is a major secret for establishing permanent peace of mind. Work with one little annoyance at a time. Try not to react with your usual annoyance. How to use mental magic. Suppose you hand binoculars to a small child without explaining their use. He might try to chew them or pound with them on the floor. Now, binoculars are quite capable of visual magic, but only when used properly. If the child doesn't understand their use, he cannot enjoy their visual magic. But when someone explains the correct function of those binoculars, the child places them to his eyes. He then enjoys a wonderful new world, superbly unlike anything he had ever seen before. It is that way with the human mind. There is nothing wrong with human affairs that mental understanding cannot correct. But people don't believe this. They don't see it. They think that they must change the exterior world. They never suspect that they must use their minds properly. They must start seeing the world in a different way. As we see the world with this magical mental vision, it changes before our eyes. This change is very practical and delightful. Every area of external living takes on a bright, new look. Because you are different, everything else is different. As examples, you will 1. Make accurate decisions. 2. Be alert to opportunities. 3. Handle people skillfully. 4. Not waste emotional energy. 5. Make maximum use of time. 6. Think clearly and accurately. 7. Have natural enthusiasm. 8. Enjoy business enterprises. 9. Never be gloomy. 10. Build overall efficiency. Every person is a mental magician. By the dramatic act of changing your mind, you change your exterior world. It is not necessary that you believe this to be true, but it is necessary that you practice the act. Then you will see what a mental magician you actually are. One evening after a meeting, we were seated around with refreshments. Someone asked Harry C., a successful businessman, with all your busy financial affairs, how come you never miss a meeting? He gestured and said, I can't afford to miss. I haven't the slightest intention of going back to that stupid depression I used to know. He added, it's no great problem for people to earn enough money for a comfortable living, but what a problem to enjoy their money-making activities. What's the sense of knocking yourself out for 8 hours a day just for a short evening of relaxation? Why not enjoy yourself all day long? Everyone in the room was impressed by that bit of wisdom. It reminded me of a question Harry had asked during another meeting. Why do you speak so often about negative emotions? Because there is a way out of every negative habit of emotion. That is why we are here, to find the way out. Whenever you feel depressed, don't identify with the state. Let me explain. Whenever depression floods in, don't automatically assume that you are the depression. Do not say, I am depressed. This harmfully identifies you with the state. That is, you and the state are so close together that you can't observe it in yourself. Instead, separate yourself from the feeling of depression. See it as something entirely apart from yourself. See it as a wind passing through you, but not stopping. That breaks the identification, and it breaks the totally needless habit of depression. Only the false self is depressed, never the true self. You, the reader, can experiment with this for yourself. Don't think that you and your depression are the same thing. You are not your depression any more than you are the wind you feel on a wintry day. Overcoming feelings of helplessness. One of the most painful emotions a human being can experience is that of helplessness. As a further complication, helplessness creates pressure that explodes outwardly with other negative emotions such as hostility and accusation. So, by solving the problem of helplessness, we automatically erase other negativities that spring from it. The counterattack to helplessness is a glimpse of your true self, which is all-powerful. Your true self is the very truth itself. Paracelsus, the wise Swiss philosopher, points out, each man has all the wisdom of the world in himself. Even the slightest percent of higher powers within will energize people with fresh courage. A lumber company down in Guatemala had set up a jungle camp for the purpose of cutting rare wood. They were far away from civilization, consequently, it was an expensive project that had to proceed efficiently. But suddenly, while cutting timber, the saws stopped. Workmen stood around helplessly. A frantic message was dispatched to their power plant, some distance away, send power. The reply came back, check connection. They investigated the cable and found the source of their helplessness, loose connection. People are thrilled to be told that they really have all the power they need for a victorious life. A statement like that arouses the true self that knows it to be an absolute fact. But you must persist beyond this first thrill. You cannot coast upon it. You must continue to nourish the source of that genuine thrill. You must enthusiastically want to know more of it. It would do those jungle workers no good merely to thrill at glimpsing the power plant in the distance. A firm and permanent connection was necessary. Likewise, when you make a firm connection with the only source of genuine power, your true self, feelings of helplessness vanish forever. Always take the viewpoint that any good idea may have deeper significance than it first appears to have. The idea of a firm connection with your true self is a good place to start. Are you taking these ideas home? Imagine yourself shopping in a large modem market. First, you place a few staple items in your shopping cart like milk and bread. The idea of fresh fruit appeals, so you add some apples and peaches. Because you like your food spicy, some cinnamon and ginger pop into the cart. Finally, you think you'd like something sweet, so you add a chocolate cake. Your shopping cart is now loaded with good things. You wheel it to the checker, pay your money, and prepare to take it home. At this point, suppose you do an incredible thing. Suppose you simply walk out of the market without taking your groceries. Suppose you don't take them home? You wouldn't dream of such an act, of course. After spending both your time and money, you would think it fantastic not to bring home the groceries. You would carry them home to be enjoyed. As you cover the principles of these pages, let that picture impress you. These principles and truths and techniques are for your health and enjoyment. You need them. Not only that, but you have paid for them with your careful examination. Do not leave these ideas in the book. Take them home, that is, apply them in your everyday experience. That is where they nourish you. Just as groceries must be taken home, so must these ideas be taken into your mental home. Take the dynamic truth that no one can hurt or insult you unless you unknowingly grant them the power of insult. Suppose you have taken this idea home. In this case, you realize that only the false self, with its touchy vanity, gets insulted. Your insight causes that useless self to disappear. So, insults and criticisms vanish into thin air. What a fantastically free life awaits the man or woman who carries home this truth, or any other. Have you done so? Well, why not? Don't leave it in the print of these pages. It is yours. You have paid. Take it home to enjoy. Summary of mental truths. 1. Do not permit a crisis to goad you into impulsive actions. Think calmly and wisely. 2. You have a right to live your own life, as long as it harms neither yourself nor others. 3. Your first duty is toward your own inner development. 4. It is entirely possible for you to live unburdened by one crisis after another. 5. Use the startling technique of not thinking. Replace habitual thought by new awareness. 6. Remember how Ralph E. cleared a crisis from his daily affairs. 7. Review the list of 10 benefits arising from your uplifted vision. 8. Try to see depression as a passing feeling. Do not see it as a permanent part of yourself. 9. Your true self can meet and dissolve every crisis. 10. Take all these ideas into your mental home. They become your willing servants. Self-defeating habits. The story is told of a man who lived in a home having mirrors as walls. Whatever room he entered, he saw himself reflected in a mirror. He spent his time looking at himself from this angle and from that viewpoint. Day and night he saw only himself. At first it was a highly gratifying experience. His own image was the only thing in the world. Nothing existed outside himself. He was the sole object of attention and admiration. But after a while, a strange anxiety set in. The thrill of seeing only himself turned into a dull habit, then into desperate pain. What had once been a thrilling gratification had now become a terror. Loneliness entered. He felt depressed, but worst of all, he felt trapped. One day a furious rebellion swept through him. Taking stones, he hurled them against the mirrors, revealing an entirely new world on the outside. Having broken his habitual self-imprisonment, he enjoyed his new world. This chapter reveals an entirely new method for breaking habitual living patterns. In keeping with a basic principle of psychopictography, our purpose is to change ourselves. People often ask, why am I such a slave to my habits? And is there a way out of this daily grind that really gets me nowhere? I assure you that there is a way out. Simply defined, a habit is a repeated way of doing something, of thinking, acting, feeling, responding, and so on. There are beneficial habits, such as finding right procedures and abandoning wrong ones. There are harmful habits, such as worrying about tomorrow and meeting daily challenges with negative reactions. How to conquer unwanted habits. Here is great news: all harmful habits can be broken. There are no exceptions to this principle. You can, if you want, empty your life of destructive habits, just as you might empty a pail of unwanted junk. Habits are a result of our conditioning. That is, they were acquired through association with others with the same habits. Habits are usually picked up by imitating other people or by following their example. There are two ways to conquer unwanted habits. One method is to attack the habitual desire with a new desire. Suppose that you want to stop smoking. You must introduce a new desire that is contrary to the desire to smoke. You could encourage the desire to save money, or to show your friends how strong you are, or you might want to improve your health. If any of these are strong enough, you will conquer the habit, for the stronger always overcomes the weaker. But the far more effective way is through the powerful idea of non-identification. This means that you break the habit by ceasing to identify with it. To identify with a habit means that you take the habit as yourself, but you are not the same things as your habit. If you have the habit of wearing a green jacket, you are not the same thing as that jacket. You are merely wearing it for a time. Likewise, you are not the same thing as your habit. You and your habit are two entirely separate things. Try to see this. How to achieve non-identification. Let's continue with this method of non-identification. Do not say, "I have a bad temper," or "I am absent-minded." Every time you do this, you strengthen the illusion that you and your habit are one and the same thing. But just as you are not that green jacket you are wearing, you are not a habit that you wear on the inner self. Refer to a habit as it. When speaking of absent-mindedness, say, "It is a present part of my life." This wears down the identification, it separates you from the habit. You begin to see them as entirely different things. Once your mind glimpses the truth that a habit is merely something acquired, it also sees that it need not be a permanent part of the inner makeup. Since a habit is acquired, it can also be dropped. A harmful habit, whatever it may be, is part of the false self. As the false self is dissolved through psycho-pictography, unwanted habits fall away of themselves. So, work on uncovering the true self. It is entirely free of unwanted habit. Back in the days of sailing vessels, British and American sea captains were faced with a peculiar problem. In crossing westward from England to Boston, the voyage was much slower than when crossing eastward from Boston to England. In fact, the westward crossing took an additional 2 weeks, which represented considerable loss of time and energy. The owners of the vessels carried their problem to Benjamin Franklin, who was Deputy Postmaster General at that time. Franklin, in turn, consulted a veteran sea captain named Timothy Folger. "It takes 2 weeks longer," explained Folger, "because you don't understand the Gulf Stream. When crossing westward it flows against a ship, costing as much as 3 miles an hour. Don't fight the Gulf Stream. Get outside of it and into the free sea." We need not fight our unwanted habit. As we will see in later pages, a frontal assault only increases their power. We need only sail in natural waters. At this point, I want to review with you a few basic ideas about psycho-pictography. There is value in reminding ourselves of the miracle method of mental pictures. The ideas you have absorbed have already begun their good work within. According to your receptivity, they have spread their rays into your mind to enlighten it. Perhaps you have already experienced a change or two. For instance, maybe you react with a shade less anxiety to a daily condition. Or maybe you now understand something that you never quite saw before. Increase your receptivity. You then become like the needle of a compass. No matter how it is turned or twisted by outer elements, it always swings back to point in the right direction. Our actions in life are a result of the way we see life. No truth is more important to grasp than this. We act toward life, for benefit or loss, according to the way we habitually see things. Suppose that you are about to enter a roomful of strangers. As you step into that room, a picture flashes into your mind of how you acted on a previous entering. That past viewpoint now determines your present behavior. If you were nervous and uncertain on the previous occasion, that negative image instructs, you were nervous before, so you must be nervous again. And that is exactly what will happen. But suppose you smash that harmful and habitual mental image? Suppose you change it to one of calm confidence? That new mental picture would then work itself out into new and poised behavior. The way you think determines the way you act. The way you act determines what happens to you. Think well and you act well. Act well and all is well. New mental pictures mean a wonderful new life. They turn our received ideas into personal powers. In his essay Intellect, Ralph Waldo Emerson speaks of the transfer of truth, but to make it available it needs a vehicle or art by which it is conveyed to men. To be communicable, it must become a picture or sensible object. It is helpful to remember that negative mental pictures are only imaginations. If a person takes them as real, she gives them false power to frighten her. This fear may then turn into self-harming behavior. Take a person who maintains an image of himself as being cruel. He will then unconsciously act out that image with cruel behavior, which is always self-destructive. He is like a man who bums down his house because he doesn't like a picture he took of it. But, and this must never be forgotten, all negative imaginations can be shattered. They can be replaced with positive pictures, with the true self which resides in peace. As one woman phrased it, the secret magic of mental pictures makes you as free as you used to be. We must never be afraid of the new truths prompted by psychopictography. We must never resist them. I mention this because the human mind tends to be shy of the new and strange. But this is like resisting diamonds because we are familiar only with rock. As Dr. Fritz Kunkel points out, but this new image appears as the inner enemy only as long as the individuals identify themselves with their egos. The next moment, they may remember that they always felt a longing for a better and deeper life, but they wanted to achieve this by self-control and moral practices. No another avenue is open towards this goal. It comes from inside themselves, not with moral commands but with creative power. It is really their better self. Why no one is permanently lost. Mental pictures help you to find this true self described by Dr. Kunkel. They destroy painful illusions, they cancel the contradictions of the false self. Every area of life takes on a new and refreshing look. Let's take a practical example of a helpful mental picture. Some years ago, a statue of a national hero was erected in a South American village. As hard times came, the village was abandoned. Jungle vines crept up to cover and conceal the statue. Its existence was forgotten for many years. Then, someone remembered. The state's value was discussed and verified. An exploration party was organized to reclaim it. For weeks the explorers chopped their way through the green maze. Their efforts met with reward. The long-lost statue was located. It was cleared of its entanglements and restored to its former glory. Every man or woman is something like that. No one is permanently lost. No mental jungle can withstand the person determined to find his true self. As a specific instance, a woman told me that she had been lost in the jungle of daily irritability. After working with mental pictures, she reported, "You know, I'm amazed to find that I need not be lost in irritability. At the end of the day, I wonder why I no longer get quite so angry and upset." In order to remember your dreams, you must write them down the moment you awaken in the morning. Otherwise, they slip swiftly from memory. The same with the ideas in psychopictography. Once you grasp the truth of a mental picture, try to impress yourself with it. Write it down on a slip of paper. Mark it in the book. Reflect upon it as you go through your day. That makes it a permanent picture with persistent power. Attracting high-level prosperity. Your level of mental awareness attracts the habitual life you lead. This towering truth is worth days of examination. It can save years of barren effort. Here we have a secret principle, usually understood only by those who delve deeply into esoteric doctrine. It is a mysterious feature hidden within many well-known teachings, including Christianity, Zen Buddhism, and in the messages of Socrates and Plato. I want to make it very clear to you, so that you can attract an entirely new circle of fortune. During a battle of the Middle Ages, a king's life was saved by an archer in the ranks. In gratitude, the king declared to the soldier, "Climb up the mountain trail for a period of 6 hours. All the land that is viewed from the topmost height shall be yours. The higher you ascend, the more you possess." The archer hiked upward, pausing at intervals to rest. At each halt, the king's officers gazed across the countryside, making note of the most distant landmark. The higher the soldier climbed, the more territory the king's men claimed for him. Finally, the soldier possessed a vast area of land with all its natural wealth. Because that soldier acted upon the king's promise, he became wealthy. I give you a similar promise. By uplifting your level of mental awareness, you will be rich. You will attract a wider variety of prosperities than you can imagine. You receive whatever you perceive. In esoteric teachings, seeing something is the same thing as possessing that something. Awareness of a new height automatically returns the profits of that new height. Your level of mental awareness attracts the habitual life you lead. Try to see that there are different levels of awareness, of understanding. Also, see that the higher your level of awareness, the more you attract the genuinely good things of life. Some people think that this makes a nice philosophy, but you must do more than this. You must work with it until you experience its rich reward. It will help your understanding if you remember that, psychologically, like attracts like. How to change everything for the better. Someone asked, what sort of things change as I climb to a higher level of understanding? Everything changes. Absolutely everything. Replace an old bouquet of flowers with a fresh one and you have fresh colors, a new arrangement, new charm in every way. Will I be more at peace with myself and with the world? This must happen. You presently see the world as you are. Uplift what you are and you automatically become more peaceful with your world. What about material things like money? You will think clearly toward all financial matters. You will not spend money foolishly because you will know the difference between wise and foolish spending. Money will have its proper place. Whether you have a little or a lot, you will never have emotional conflict over money. Why? Because you are no longer using it for ego gratification, but simply for practical purposes. This idea has great significance for you. Think it through. What about friendships and social relations? They always change for the better. It is a psychological law that you attract people who inhabit your own level of understanding. When you ascend, you attract people on that same higher level. You will find, as you grow, that you drift away from former friends. This is because you no longer have mutual psychological interest. Your new relationships are much happier. There is much less conflict and quarreling so characteristic of a lower level. Can these ideas be proven? That is the whole point. I want you to prove them for yourself by personal experience. That is how you win their riches. Do you know what causes you to value these ideas more than anything else? It is when you actually see yourself changing for the better as a result of them. Once you get a taste of truth, nothing can stop you from searching for more. And there is always more. That's the beauty of inner growth. It's an endlessly enjoyable adventure. I think that's the point of the mental picture about the climbing soldier. By climbing for himself, he proved for himself. Right. All this may seem a bit mysterious to you at present, but work with it. Start climbing as best you can. Use the principles of Psycho-Pictography to uplift your level of understanding. Every new level is a delightful surprise. Psycho-Photography changes your past. Nothing arouses more interest and wonderment than the idea we will now explore. Psycho-Pictography, the miracle method of mental pictures, changes the bothersome past. By teaching you to see past events through enlightened eyes, these bothersome events lose their power to harm. No longer can a foolish mistake flood you with painful feelings of regret. Guilt and anxiety over the worst of folly vanish completely. You no longer feel that you have missed the boat, lost the golden opportunity, or been cheated out of anything. How does this miracle come about? Let's take the case of Ruth B., who, as a young woman, found herself in trouble with a man. Disgraced and ashamed, she moved to a distant city. None of her new friends knew, of course, but she added, "But I know. Is there an escape from this hounding guilt?" First, Ruth, may I point out that guilt is a deceitful notion. It is commonly thought to be a sign of humility and repentance, but it is just the opposite. Guilt is a self-centered emotion concerned with what others will think, with reputation, and so on. Not only that, but guilt prevents you from finding freedom from its cause. Yes, I can see that. Guilt gets me nowhere. So what do I do? Your freedom lies in not identifying yourself with your past mistake. Let me explain what is meant by the term identification. This means that you presently identify yourself and your mistakes as one. You take them as the same thing. You wrongly think that you are your misted, but you are not. You are not your mistake. Your false self made that mistake, but you are not your false self. You see, mistakes like this spring from the false self, which is governed by illusions, impulsiveness, vanity, and just plain foolishness. But your true self is free of all this. This may be difficult to grasp at first, but please stick with it. You cannot possibly imagine the miracle it will perform for you. Can you suggest an easy start, something I can grasp? Don't identify yourself as being foolish. See that past event as a foolish act on the part of the false self, which is not really you. Separate the true self from the false self. Ruth's progress can be likened to one of the rivers of the Andes in South America. Starting on a muddy mountain, its yellow water flows down a long valley. As it steadily rolls away from its source, it is fed on both sides by clear, fresh streams. Gradually, the purifying streams transform the river into a natural state of clarity and beauty. Your purifying waters are your thoughts of a higher level. They perform the miracle of clearing your past, of giving you a fresh flow today. At this point, I want to explain something helpful for changing not only your past, but the present and the future as well. Whenever you decide to rebel against a habitual negativity of any kind, a resistance arises within you. You see, negative habits don't want to give up the harmful power they have had over you for so long. They fear extinction. But you must give them no consideration whatsoever. Your peace and progress are at stake. By understanding that this new resistance is the usual thing, you will not be puzzled or discouraged when it arises. Armed with this understanding, you can cheerfully persist until you crash through the habit barrier. People are baffled at the difficulty in breaking a mental habit, for instance, that of getting depressed over a business problem. They are even more puzzled at the enormous resistance to their efforts to break the habit. They may succeed for a short time, then, as one woman recently remarked, I always end up with the same habit of between-meal snacks. I'm like a soldier who decides to give battle but who runs smack into 10 enemy soldiers. So I quit. Why fight a losing battle? She is right. It is useless to battle like this. A direct attack on a habit only strengthens it. I advised her, do not think that the habitual self has power over its habits. Now, since this is so, how can you dissolve the habit? By getting an entirely new self, a self that is not identified with the habit. Mastering power thinking. It is a bright day when a man or woman sees the need for thinking with full force. Far too many people think loosely, mechanically, without design or purpose. They fail to realize that the mind possesses dozens of self-serving powers, such as attention and flexibility. The chief enemy of power thinking is habit. People think along the same lines day after day without realizing that habitual thought has limited benefit. Habitual thinking is circle thinking that leads nowhere. It blocks mental exploration. It prevents a man from searching out and finding higher levels of living. The first step in venturing beyond mechanical thinking is to become aware that we are doing just that. We must not mistake an echo for an answer. This supplies our first clue to an alternative. We sense that there is something superior to mechanical thought. It is known that the famous Cullinan diamond is only one half of the original stone. By studying the inner structure of this fabulous gem, scientists know that it has another half, undiscovered as yet. The human mind is like that. We need the mechanical part, all right, for it releases us from consciously thinking about routine manners, like walking or dressing. But the other half, the the creative part, is also necessary if we are to live more than a merely mechanical life. We must find and put to use the other half of our mental diamond. One way to engage in power thinking is to think from a basic principle of truth. Consider this principle as sort of a camp from which you will explore the forest of life. Select a mental picture from this book that attracts you in particular. Give it your consistent attention and interest. Let your mind explore it as you go through your day. Try to find its deeper meaning. This kind of easygoing reflection permits the principle to unfold itself, to tell you its full story. And that, in turn, raises your living level. Dissolving destructive habit. Why, asks someone, do we repeat our self-defeating behavior? For instance, bad temper. Why would a person cling to such a destructive habit for year after year? We cling to self-defeating habits because we don't really see them as such. Remember the basic principle that nobody ever consciously harms themselves. We cling to harmful habits because they give us temporary gratification of some kind. A man might justify his bad temper because he thinks it makes him look like a man of strength, like someone who knows his rights and demands them. This justification smothers his ability to recognize bad temper as a self-destructive habit. How would he become aware of his self-deception? By willingly dropping the imaginary self-picture he has of being a strong and dominating individual. As he does so, he becomes natural and has no further need for temper. He was using it to support his fictitious picture of strength. But no longer having that picture, he no longer needs to hang it on the nail of temper. Then this man must start observing himself? He must see that he is acting out a false role? Exactly. Then, his self-observation will cause him to challenge that false self-picture. That in itself is fine progress. He has already weakened its hold on him. Along with this, the man begins to think along new lines. He says to himself, let's see, now, this negative behavior of mine is really getting me nowhere. I always end up scared and miserable. This must be self-defeating behavior. Yes, that's what it is. And I don't want to go on with it any longer. It seems so easy when you explain it, but why do we so stubbornly persist in the wrong way? Because of another false assumption we have that the present self-damaging way is the only way. It isn't the only way, for there is the great alternative of inner freedom. But people in mental prison can't see the outside world. They know only prison. They will even resist you if you tell them of liberty. They fear that the loss of prison means the loss of themselves. They think they will be lost, empty, with no place to go. Their prison-conditioned minds reason, better to be miserable than to be homeless. They don't realize that there is a castle for them. We find this castle by challenging our conditioned outlooks? Yes. Learn to see that they are merely conditioned attitude. But do so light-heartedly. You can work hard without making it hard work. Have fun with the adventure, for that's what an adventure in self-discovery. Get the habit of closely examining your unprofitable experiences. Discover how they came about. Study the causes that produce the effect. Make it a scientific investigation. The answer to an unhappy experience is hidden within the experience itself. Most importantly, discover the role that you played in bringing about the result. Don't hesitate to take responsibility for your personal part. Self-honesty leads to self-insight. Self-insight leads to freedom from negative habit. All self-examination should be done unemotionally. Don't blame yourself or dislike yourself for anything. Self-blame only creates new waves of unprofitable emotions. Instead, look at the experience with a calm and curious mind. Remember that your objective is not to find fault with anything, but to scientifically look at the event with profit as your goal. It helps to examine an unrewarding experience in the way that a wise cook might look over a cake recipe that didn't turn out so well. The cook wouldn't get angry at either himself or the recipe, rather, he would study the entire process. He would review the ingredients, check the oven temperature, and so on. That would break up the previous negative process. Whenever we experience physical discomfort, like a headache, that discomfort is really a message. It tries to tell us something for our own dollar good. It might inform us that we are involved in too many needless activities. It might signal that resentment is a wrong reaction to being ignored by someone. You heed it, that message can help us make corrections. The same with upsetting experiences. We should again listen to the message. So, consider this idea the next time something bothers you. It will help you to think toward the experience in a new way, a non-distressing way. To summarize, we should let negative events show us where we are out of harmony with natural laws of living. As Francis Bacon wrote, nature is commanded by obeying her. Learn from an experience by examining that experience. That is how to exchange poor life habits for rich ones. The most important points of this chapter. 1. All unwanted habits can be replaced with beneficial ones. 2. Do not identify with an unwanted habit. It is something merely acquired. It is not a part of the real you. 3. Increase your receptivity to mental pictures. Let them work for you more and more. 4. Your thinking habits determine the kind of life you lead. 5. Do not resist new truths. They want to set you free. 6. Lift your level of awareness. 7. Everything good happens to you as you switch your life habits from negative to positive. Prove it for yourself. 8. You are tied to a sad past by mental chains only. Break them. 9. Do not try to change a habit with a direct attack. Your total understanding causes it to fall away. 10. Listen to the secret message of your experiences. Let them help you build self-serving habit. Why is it, asked Philip R., that my relations with other people are so painful? Regardless of the methods I use, nothing goes right, at least, not for long. Honestly, now, is there a right way? This chapter answers Philip's question. The methods you will meet, I am sure, are entirely different from anything you have ever encountered before. And they will work differently, far more effectively than previous methods. You are in for some profitable surprises. There are definite psychological laws governing human relationship. As they are understood and applied, they change these relationships into what you want them to be. If you persistently practice, you cannot fail. Brightness will appear in your home life, in handling children, socially, in contacts with the opposite sex, in business, everywhere. Just as spring turns everything green, so do these laws refresh every area of human relations. We start with that all-powerful principle that threads in and out of Psycho-Pictography. To change others, first change yourself. Let's take an everyday situation and see how it works. Philip R., who asked the previous question, became more specific by saying, I have a trapped feeling when I'm with other people. I'm ill at ease, don't know what to say. I wonder whether I'm liked and approved by others. Forget other people. Work with your own mind. How? This trapped feeling springs from your need of approval. You want them to like you, but you're not sure that they will. From now on, Philip, don't seek their approval. Don't try so hard to please. Simply go about your business and be done with it. Be courteous, but don't sacrifice your inner integrity by asking for their approval. This is not selfishness. It's the finding of your true self. Philip later reported, it's strange. By having a better attitude toward myself, other people act better toward me. Why didn't I see this years ago? You ever have a trapped feeling when with others, you can free yourself with these principles. Practice self-study. Self-change starts with self-study. But self-study presents a problem to some people, usually expressed like this: I can see some value in self-examination and self-knowledge, but doesn't it lead to gloom and self-centeredness? Shouldn't we try to forget ourselves? We must reverse our position entirely on this. The right kind of self-study cannot lead to self-centeredness. The fact is, genuine self-observation is the very power that frees us from self-absorption. The whole purpose of self-study is inner freedom through self-knowledge. We can only forget ourselves as we understand ourselves. Lack of self-study keeps us imprisoned. Self-knowledge is the key for escape. Motive is everything. We must have correct reasons for examining our inner life. Merely to worry or fret over ourselves is the very opposite of self-observation. They are not only painful in themselves, but they make the snarl even worse. The correct motive for self-study is just one thing: self-understanding. That is what we need. That is why we work on ourselves. To become free, we must see what holds us in bondage. If we want to be happier, we must know what inner barriers block that higher state. We need more poise and strength. We must learn how to draw them out of our natural resources. As for forgetting ourselves, this is impossible until we first heal ourselves. A wounded soldier is compelled to think of his wound until it heals. The right kind of self-study is prompted by a desire for inner healing. Our sincere purpose must be to exchange negative patterns for positive ones. We must want to be self-aware men and women. The story goes about the man who tumbled down a flight of stairs, making a loud racket. Picking himself up, he asked, "I wonder what all the noise was about?" That man hadn't enough self-awareness to see the cause of the noise. But we can do much better. Sincere self-study reveals that many of our annoying noises are within ourselves. Seeing that, we will soon cease bothering ourselves. To summarize, study yourself for entirely practical purposes. Plunge into the game with the intention of seeing that there is an entirely superior way to live your life. Some years ago, an Englishman named J.T. Wood was seized by an ambition. He wanted to discover the ancient and long-lost Temple of Diana. Its discovery would be a landmark in archaeology, for the magnificent temple was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So the British Museum sent him out to make the search at Ephesus, a former city of Greece. Wood encountered one difficulty after another. As time passed, money ran short. Rain and mud bogged down the search. Workmen proved unreliable. Wood was personally attacked by an assassin, but escaped. Worst of all was the deep dismay over the lack of results. Their persistent probes revealed no sign of Diana's fabulous temple. But Wood possessed a dynamic character trait: he wanted results badly enough. He had no thought but to actually discover what he knew was there. And he did. On New Year's Day, a spade struck a pavement of white marble. That first clue was all Wood needed. He surprised and delighted the world with his discovery of the beautiful Temple of Diana. That is the sort of ambition we must have. We must want badly enough actually to find what we suspect is there. In this instance, we want to discover the secrets of human behavior. We search to uncover people as they really are, not as we merely believe or hope they are. In following sections, we will expose some unprofitable thinking toward other people. Whenever you want wealthy discoveries about human nature, your own or others, remember this wise observation: you may be always successful if you do but set out and let your thoughts and practice proceed upon right method. Let not the genuine value of anything escape you. Marcus Aurelius. Should you help others? People confess, "I'm confused over the duty of helping other people. I want to be good to others, but I just don't have the strength. Is this selfish of me?" A false sense of duty damages human harmony. So if you have ever asked a similar question, please, for now, don't concern yourself in the least with ideas about helping others. Here is one of the sorriest traps ever invented. For one thing, it is necessary to discover what is really helpful to others. Concentrate your strength on achieving the self-change we have been covering. His is your first duty. In the long run, it is the richest contribution you could ever make to others. The new way to command other people. Don't try to do something for another, rather, try to be someone to him. This other person, whether spouse or child or friend, will then inwardly recognize that you are different. They will sense your inner strength. They will have you as an example of a mature and unafraid person. You will be the genuinely spiritual person whom they hoped existed after all. You will be the one for whom they have been searching all their lives, and the one who can really help them. All they have found up to now is someone who did something for them in expectation of getting something in return. But you, with your true self in command, are different. Everyone secretly knows that you can only love someone when you don't want something from him. And that is the kind of genuine love you have to offer. The above question indicates a false sense of guilt. This guilt is caused by trying to reconcile what you were told was your duty and what your inner self knows is true about the whole matter of helping others. The truth is, you are not required to help others until you are able to do so without consciously thinking about it. Then, your aid will be spontaneous, something you naturally want to do. It's like a young peach tree. It makes no deliberate effort to give peaches, for it knows it has nothing as yet to give. It knows that its present task is to harmonize with natural laws of growth by taking in sunshine and air. Then, in the right time, it effortlessly produces peaches for others to enjoy. How to become a superior person? You need never deliberately try to do anything for another. If it is a conscious effort, it will be painful to you, useless to the other person, and wrong for both of you. You need only put first things first. The first thing is your own inner enrichment. Do this, and you will never again be bothered about when or how you should help others. You will be in that state of inner freedom where you help others not by doing something, but by being someone. This, then, is the perfect method to change others. First, change yourself. There is something different, something really remarkable about the man or woman who has accomplished great inner change, who has found the true self. You have probably had the interesting experience of meeting someone who impressed you as having uncommon inner strength. Such a unique person has a look of quietness that bears no resemblance to the calm-appearing mask that many people wear. He doesn't try to make an impression. She can be honest with you because she doesn't want anything from you. He is close to you, yet at the same time has an air of detachment. Such a superior personality is excellently described by Professor Burt. Love of detachment, on the other hand, is free from all demandingness, all need to control the loved one, all dependence upon him. FT is detached, not in the sense of withdrawing from emotional concern for others, but in the sense of gladly accepting them as they are, not requiring them to be different from their present selves as the price on one's friendly affection. FT is detached, not from caring for others, but from preoccupation with oneself, and from the need to wake others serve the cravings of the self. It is the compassionate giving of oneself to the world without asking for anything in return. Genuine kindness is not what we do. It is what we are. How to handle a difficult person. As you have discovered, the objective of mental pictures is to teach you to view everything differently. This is the magic that changes everything into what it should be. There is something within you that responds to this truth. For deep down, every person senses that his or her mental viewpoints make the world whatever it is. During World War II, the Aldous lamp was used with valuable result. It was a signaling lamp with a special feature. When flashed from a ship, it could be seen only by someone standing within a certain stretch of the shoreline. Anyone standing too far on either side of the stretch could not see it, but anyone wanting to catch the message needed only to change his viewpoint. Now, I want to give you a valuable viewpoint to use in all your human relations. It is really a miracle method for handling people, especially those who make it difficult for you. The method is simplicity itself. Whenever encountering a troublesome person, do not identify him as being cruel or stupid or rude or anything else like that. Instead, see him as a frightened person. This is exactly what the cruel or rude person is. All negative emotions have a foundation of fear. An individual displays these negativities to the degree that he is afraid. His angry aggressiveness is the only method he presently knows for releasing the tension of fear. Now let's see how your switch in viewpoint changes things. Suppose that when first meeting this difficult person you do take the wrong viewpoint of seeing him as cruel or hateful. This will have a definite effect on the way you try to handle him. It will make you afraid of him, for negativity in one person arouses negativity in another. So if you turn negative toward this other person, you cannot handle him wisely and tactfully. But see what happens when you really understand that he acts as he does because he is scared. This will not make you negative in turn. It does not make you angry or defensive. You rejoin emotionally free of him. So you are able to proceed calmly and wisely. Not only that, but your calmness impresses him. Your strength is transferred to him. The process is reversed. Instead of his negativity transferring itself to you, you transfer your positiveness to him. It is much like offering a new kind of candy to a child. He may not understand it at first, but he senses that you are his friend. In time, he may taste that candy, your understanding of him, and the relationship is magically transformed. Try this miracle method for yourself in a specific relationship, perhaps in your business or home. It is really remarkable what changes it makes. As an extra benefit, you will prove something that you have suspected all along, that when you see things correctly, correct results occur. Let's take another area of human relations and see why self-strength is so essential. Have you ever wondered why people treat you as they do? The answer may surprise you, but what a rich revelation. Whenever you meet another person, your behavior tells him or her how to treat you. By behavior we mean everything about you that is observed by the other person. Your facial expressions flash signals indicating either strength or weakness. Gestures, postures, and your manner of walk are definite signs as to your character and personality. What you say and how you say it convey certain impressions to your observer. If your eyes wander during a conversation, he draws certain conclusions, perhaps that you are disinterested in him. You flash hundreds of impressions by which the other person sizes you up. People are far more alert to you than they appear to be. This alertness leads them to ask, what kind of a person is she? How must I treat her in order to get along? Now we come to the vital point. Your overall behavior creates an impression of either strength or weakness. If it is weak or negative, people will not warm up to you. No one likes weakness in another person, for it reminds the observer of his or her own weakness. What they dislike in themselves they dislike in others. Also, if they sense weakness, they tend to take advantage of it. This is an unfortunate truth about some people. So you cannot afford an impression of weakness or negativity. As you develop inwardly, as you raise your level of awareness, it changes the way you appear to others. You need do nothing to force this exterior change. In fact, there is nothing you can do by working from the outside. Strength proceeds from the inner to the outer. As your inner self develops more power, it automatically expresses itself in every form of exterior behavior. People then see you as a different person, for that is exactly what you are. Then, they treat you with new respect. You attract what you are. This is an absolute law of human relations. It works in your favor as you work with it. Your part is to build a strong inner self that expresses itself outwardly. Do this and you will never again worry over your treatment by others. What should be your state of mind toward a person in your life who is definitely cruel? There is only one way of thinking that serves your best interest. But what a marvelous way! Understanding. If you really understand a cruel or revengeful or vicious person, you are entirely free of that person. He or she cannot hurt you in any way whatsoever. When you have insight into a negative individual, you do not then project your own negative emotions toward him. It is not his cruelty that hurls. It is your own negative reaction that hurts. But when you dwell on a high level of awareness, you do not react in fear or anger or agony toward that cruel person. Suppose you see a tiger in a zoo. Now, you know very well that this tiger is a cruel and vicious animal. He would destroy you if he could. You understand his ferocity, yet you are unafraid of him. His cruelty does not alarm you. Why are you fearless? Because you know he is powerless to harm you. The bars protect you. Do likewise with a cruel person. Understand his cruelty, but do not personalize it. He has absolutely no power to touch you. Just as a tiger is restrained by the bars, A hostile person is prevented from harming you by your understanding of him. Your insight makes firm bars. But if you personalize, if you get emotional, if you unthinkingly attribute power to that person, you weaken the bars. Then, you yourself permit him to spring at you. You may believe that the other person's cruelty is your problem. It is not. The problem is that you weaken the bars of your perception. But if you will work at building your understanding, think about this. I want to tell you about the single greatest mistake anyone makes when estimating the character of another person. It will help you avoid mistakes in your relations with others. It is especially helpful when meeting someone for the first time. The single greatest mistake a person makes is this: wrongly assuming that the other person is as mature and reasonable and considerate as he or she appears to be on the surface. Do you have any idea of the shock and grief caused by this false assumption? Perhaps you know from personal experience, we don't see below the surface of other people's. Instead, we idealize, we paint them with the qualities we need and want them to have. Then, when the paint wears thin, we are shocked at what we see underneath. If the other person smiles a lot, we assume that he has a cheerful personality, while he really smiles from mechanical habit. If she displays a decisive manner, we believe she is sure of herself, while her very manner is a cover-up for inner uncertainty. You must remember that other people have far greater inner conflicts and confusions than they reveal. You sometimes see these suppressed pressures burst through with a flash of anger, sarcasm, or accusation. Self-understanding helps us to see and understand other people. By being aware of our own inner selves, we become perceptive in our judgments of others and wise in our relations. Simple understanding has no fear. Don't just project your ideas onto others. Don't see them as you hope they are. Don't let your mind trick you. Remember, mental suffering is a clash between illusion and reality. Don't project the illusion and you won't hear a crash. Here is a simple system: don't see other people as you think they are. Let them gradually reveal what they really are. Use these ideas whenever you meet people. They will give you a new and calm command. There is a legend about the Indian tribe that feared to search for food in a nearby forest. The forest was dark, forbidding, unmarked by trails. Even the boldest of warriors were often lost for days. Along came a medicine man offering magic moccasins. Whoever wore a pair was surely and safely guided back to camp. The following brief points are like magic moccasins. They guarantee safe guidance through the forest of people. To walk safely, wear them. 1. The most persuasive power you have toward others is a mature self. 2. The mark of greatness is to be superior without feeling superior. 3. The consciousness of being loved softens the keenest pang. Joseph Addison. 4. The turning point in all your exterior relations comes when you start changing your inner self. 5. Strong people attract the weak. 6. Possessiveness and dependency are not states of love. 7. Your own level of being attracts the kind of people who enter your life. 8. He is happy as well as great who needs neither to obey nor command in order to be something. Goethe. 9. Your true self cannot be afraid of anyone. 10. You break the cord of painful thought toward another person by snipping the connection within your own mind. 11. It is very painful to pretend to be someone. 12. Any sincere effort at bettering your human relations returns a reward. 13. Don't drain your energy by thinking negatively toward people who harm you. 14. You get along with others to the exact degree that you get along with yourself. 15. A real person stands out like a human being among statues. How to avoid hurt feelings. Before ending this chapter, I want to emphasize the importance of seeing the difference between the true self and the false self. You will profit richly by reviewing the section in Chapter 2 on this. But let's now take a practical example. It will show you the magical power of the true self. How, people often ask, can I avoid getting my feelings hurt so easily and so often? Let's see how the true self accomplishes this. Picture in your mind the following scene: two men are standing outdoors in fair weather. One of them is a magician with supernormal powers, the other is an average man. Suddenly, a storm strikes. Rain and wind whip furiously around the men. The average man, caught in that storm, gets knocked around, soaked. He becomes helplessly miserable. But the magician, that's another story. He has the power to make himself invisible. So, as the storm breaks, that's what he does. In becoming an invisible man, he cannot be touched by rain or wind. His invisibility gives the storm nothing whatsoever to strike. How can a storm strike an invisible man? It can't. It passes on through. The magician remains calm, undisturbed, unhurt. You have power to become such a magician. And you have it now. There is only one way in the entire world to avoid the pain of being offended, insulted, accused, attacked, hurt. And this is it. The magician is your true self which you now possess. Ask yourself this question. Please understand all this. It is the false self, the average man of mental picture 31, that always gets insulted and cheated and wronged. It is the self that gets hurt by the storm of sarcastic remarks and cruel actions of other people. But the true self can never be hurt by anyone or anything. The storm passes right on through. So ask yourself, which self do these outer storms fall upon? If they fall on the false self, with all its prides and sensitivities, you get your feelings hurt. If they fall on the true self, they pass on through. The false self is a solid block that gets hit by everything, but the invisible true self stops nothing. Work at dissolving the false self. I assure you that all this is not some vague theory and is not mere words. It is one of the most practical ideas you could ever understand. French novelist Honoré de Balzac was right when he declared, "Miracles are within us, natural facts which some call supernormal." He was just as right when he added, "None are superior to what you might become." Keep these ideas in mind. 1. The plans in this chapter give you a new and effective command in all your human relations. 2. Understand and work with the natural laws governing relations with others. 3. For smoothness in human affairs, see people as they really are, not as you may want them to be. 4. The most valuable contribution you can make to others is to be inwardly strong. They need your strength. 5. An understanding of the other person gives you skill and power with him or her. 6. Your overall action and behavior tells others how to treat you. Work with this idea. 7. No one can hurt your feelings unless you react and hurt. Don't. 8. Remember, other people have many more problems and conflicts than appear on the surface. 9. Review the 15 points following mental pictures. 10. When you find your true self, all your human relations are cheery and effective. Success? Exactly what is success? That, obviously, is the first intelligent inquiry we want to make. You are successful when you really enjoy your life. There can be no other genuine definition. It digs right to the root of things. A man might make lots of money or get elected to public office or be popular at his club, but what good is all that unless he really enjoys himself? It is of no use whatsoever, and every man and woman inwardly knows it. The great achievement and the high moral duty of every individual is to be happy through realization of spiritual laws. History records how the ancient islanders of Polynesia studied the flights of seabirds. Over the days and weeks they observed the great flocks fly away from their home islands to disappear over the distant ocean. Those daring seabirds provided a valuable clue to the islanders. They reasoned that somewhere, beyond their present sight, rested new and fruitful islands to be claimed. They acted upon that clue. Setting out in their frail canoes, they followed the seasonal flights. They finally found what they suspected was out their new islands, ready for abundant living. That is what we will do in this chapter. We will follow the clues to a more successful land for living. Always put first things first. People say, when it comes to success, I never know what I want. One minute it's one thing and the next minute something entirely different. How can I get logical order in my searchings? Put first things first. The first things are always those related to our inner life. Secondary goals are the outward ones, such as our financial activities and our material possessions. By placing the inner life first, we then enjoy the outer. Why not enjoy yourself as well as your possessions? This simple thought rarely occurs to millions of intelligent people. There is nothing wrong with having lots of money. It is just more important to have lots of inner quietness. It is a good idea to redecorate your home, but a far better idea to redecorate the way you think. It is interesting to know the news of the day. It is 10 times more interesting to know yourself. People hesitate to set first things first. It is because they don't realize that inner success is what they really want. They fail to see that exterior things are useless substitutes for inner success. People who achieve a financial fortune are often surprised to find that they are really no happier than before. Even this shock doesn't wake them up to the fact that their values are all wrong, that they had placed last things first. They usually go on to a second false assumption. They assume that some other exterior achievement, perhaps fame or power, will do it. But they never will do it. The outer can never do anything for the inner. It takes genuine daring and courage to set first things first. And it takes a practical mind. People often tell me, "But Mr. Howard, this is a practical world. We must live in a practical way." True. It is for that very reason that people must place their inner riches first. Then, and then only, can they place their exterior affairs in their proper places. And that is when they begin to enjoy their success as well as achieve it. Let's go into details with an amazing truth about money. In reading this book, which plunges deeply into the inner world of the human mind, you may have a question. This question frequently comes up, especially among business people. It is a profitable inquiry with an exciting answer. It goes like this: I certainly see the need for exploring my inner world of thoughts and emotions. After all, a person's life is much more than material possessions. We also live in an invisible world of desires and sympathies and affections. But I wonder about something. Should we spend too much time in this inner world? Isn't the outer world the practical one? After all, as a salesperson, it's vital that I concentrate on profits, sales, customers, and other tangible items. To sum up my question, what can all these psychological ideas do for me in my commercial world? What is their value? Why should I study them intensely? I'm sincere about this. I really want to know. If you have ever asked this question, an amazing truth is about to enter your mind. Welcome it heartily. I guarantee a wealthy reward in everything you do, including your business life of profits, sales, and customers. Listen, there is not a single idea in this entire book that doesn't connect directly with your financial affairs, and that connection is favorable to you in a way you cannot presently imagine. But just wait. Obviously, your inward feelings affect your outward acts of business. If you are sad and depressed, you rob yourself of energies that might otherwise be used for winning new customers. If you fear your business rivals, that fear overhangs like a dark cloud, darkening your business day. But look at the positive side. Your inner cheeriness naturally shines outwardly upon everyone you meet, creating a sunny business climate. If you have inner patience and kindness, others will sense that and will want to be with you. Nothing is more important for a businessperson to understand than the absolute connection between the inner, psychological life and the outer, commercial life. A toy top with inward balance spins merrily, to the delight of the child who sees it. Likewise, as the great psychological truths maintain our inner stability, we spin merrily in every exterior activity, including our business affairs. I want to give you a superb example of all we have been talking about. It is the report of Larry D., a junior executive in the insurance business. I was at work one morning when an idea flashed through my mind. It concerned the difference between the true self and the false self. You had made it clear that the false self causes all our trouble. It is touchy, defensive, and everything else harmful. Anyway, I wondered how soon I'd have a chance to turn this knowledge into practical experience. It came a few hours later. Driving back from lunch, I saw that someone had taken my reserved parking space. I was annoyed. I felt like telling him off. That was my first reaction to that impudent car. I hotly asked what right it had to take the reserved place. Then I had a second thought. I asked exactly why I felt so resentful. Here I made a fascinating discovery, the very kind you tell us about. It was my false self that was offended. I clearly saw how this vain and petty little self was robbing my peace of mind. And just for the sake of a stupid little parking space. What a revelation! For the very first time in my life I saw how I could react peacefully to any exterior event. I need not be at the mercy of the egotistical false self. My true self can take that very same parking event with a simple quietness. Let me repeat, what a fantastic revelation to see that I could react in a totally different story, and what a relief! You know what helped this insight? A funny thing. There was an open parking space next to my office door, while my reserved space was farther away. I could have had that open space. That proved that my resentful reaction had nothing to do with practical matters. My pretty vanity was hurt at someone taking my space. You know, Mr. Howard, you've been trying to get this into our heads for a long time. Thanks for your patience. You were calmly waiting for us to see what you knew to be the truth. I wish every businessman could see it. Believe me, I'll do my part to tell them. For the very first time, I see the truth we have reviewed so often, the truth that our viewpoints make our world whatever it is. A new awareness creates an entirely new world. So it is. It is a world where you can be fully involved with life, but never hurt by it. If you ever ask, are psychological and spiritual ideas of practical value in the business world? I want you to know nothing, absolutely nothing, is more practical. For better business and enjoyable business, you cannot afford to overlook them. Not only will they solve business problems, but they do something far superior to that. They prevent problems from arising in the first place. The mark of the truly wise individual is that his or her insight prevents problems from ever appearing in the first place. Relate every idea in Psycho-Pictography to your everyday experiences, including your money-making affairs. You will see how wonderfully practical they are. People remark, I get discouraged so easily. Suppose I set up my success program but lose my drive. How can I zoom ahead once more? A king was out hunting with his princes in a forest many miles from the castle. A sudden snowstorm fell on the party. In the confusion, the king was separated from the others. When he failed to return to the castle after 4 days, he was given up as lost. But on the 5th day, he appeared in the warm dining room. Someone asked him how he had found strength enough to keep going. The king replied, I remembered all that the castle means to me. That kind of thinking will keep anyone going forward. Even while involved in difficulties and obstacles, we can remember what it means to succeed. This remembrance creates a powerful emotional force that carries us through. It is helpful to concentrate on some specific castle, that is, some special goal of yours. Examples: to be less tense and anxious, to build a brighter future, to banish depression, to be a better businessperson, to have smoother human relations. Think of what it means to win one of these. Remember the rewards that go with your success. This supplies strength that keeps you going all the way to your castle. You are wiser than you think. You sometimes catch a flash of insight that reveals the truth about things. This flash, coming at an unexpected moment, proves that the truth is already within you and known very well by you. It waits only for your quiet invitation. It is this brief brightness, this magnificent glimpse, that is the foundation for all genuine enthusiasm. A thrill passes through all men at the reception of a new truth. Emerson, pursue this thrill. It is the only enthusiasm that will never wear away, that will never disappoint you. If you will simply permit its intensity to grow, it will do so naturally. Then, you will know an excitement toward life that you have never known before. It is like observing a beautiful sunset gradually. As the colors rise and spread, they carry you inwardly aloft. You are eager to experience the greater beauty that you know is only a matter of time. The secret of lasting willpower. People often tell me, for many years, I've tried and failed to use my willpower. Does willpower really exist? If so, how can I find it? Yes, willpower certainly exists, but unless you achieve a degree of inner unity, you cannot awaken it from its sleeping state. To say the same thing in positive fashion, by winning a measure of self-unity, you find a will to achieve your desires, whatever they may be. You will be living your own life. You are not at the mercy of your fickle false self. A person without inner unity is like a group of children at play. They decide to go on a hike, but can't agree on the direction to take. One child calls out for the others to follow him northward, so they all go north for a few yards. Then, a second child calls out that it would be better to go south, so they all switch to the new direction. Back and forth they go, first one way and then another, never getting anywhere. They finally give up in exhaustion and dismay. Human beings have thousands of inner parts. They have an emotional center made up of all sorts of desires and inclinations, many of them in opposition to others. The mind contains a vast variety of thoughts and opinions and viewpoints, including negative and contradictory ones. As you work on yourself, say, through self-study, you gather together all your positive parts into a working unit. These positive forces then harmonize consistently and for persistent purpose. You become like an automobile engine whose parts are assembled into a power plant capable of carrying the car wherever desired. Then you have genuine will. How to achieve this inner unity that supplies willpower first? Realize that it is quite possible for you to pull yourself together. Then, casually absorb all the mental pictures in this book. Your unity is their purpose. Your attractive personality. What about personality? How does it enter your program for general success? And what, exactly, is personality? Personality is the outer expression of what you inwardly are. Please consider this fact to be like an iceberg, more beneath the surface than appears. This being so, the wise person starts with inner alteration. Then, the outer self brightens naturally, effortlessly. Such improvements include attractive facial expressions, a pleasant voice, public poise, and much more. Additionally, the conqueror of his or her inner world possesses a certain mystical charm. The inner self shines for all to see, like the cabin lights that glow on a passing ship in the night. The single greatest force for creating a new personality is a full claim upon your personal integrity. This means, you must not do things for other people in an effort to make them like you. You have no duty to accept any ideas as true until you have personally proven it. You should take a cheerful responsibility for releasing your true self. You must not sacrifice your mind to another person merely because he seems sure of himself. I am thinking of a boulevard merchant whose very quietness shouts of deep inner strength. Without saying a word, you sense his contact with the lofty life. I suspect that many a customer is unknowingly drawn to his shop because of this. Mysteriously, yet in a very real way, he transmits his secret strength to everyone around him. The question came up, do you mean that we should work from the motive of attracting others? No. A glittering personality that merely attracts others is not enough. Secret despair lies behind such shallowness. The mature personality attracts others, yet, at the same time, leaves the possessor contented. It is found by fully claiming your individual integrity. You must not worry over your progress. Whether you sail toward a material goal or a psychological one, anxiety has absolutely no place in your plans. How can you break the connection between your mind and worry? By enjoying the trip itself. By abandoning all ideas that you are responsible for keeping things going. A young man found himself stranded in Japan. Thinking he might work his way back home on a merchant ship, he applied to the captain. His offer was accepted. On the sailing date, he reported to the captain and asked, "What should I do?" "Just enjoy the voyage," the captain answered. "Enjoy the voyage?" repeated the puzzled young man. "Yes, that's all you need to do. Your passage has already been paid." It developed that a friend had heard of the problem and had paid the fare home. Likewise, there is nothing we need to do or really can do except to enjoy the trip. As long as we are aboard the ship, that is, if we are traveling along with the right principles, we can completely relax. The ship is headed in the right direction, and so are we. Oh yes, the voyage might include some stormy emotions for a while, or we may be rocked by mental confusions, but that is not really a problem. The truth is always intact, and so are we. We must rid our minds of the idea that we are responsible for result. That is a tremendous contribution to your sense of relaxation. Make up your mind to enjoy the voyage. Sooner or later, your mind will agree that it's a great idea. It is your moral duty to be happy. Wherever you want to achieve a new success, you can make a perfect start. Whether in your business affairs or domestic life or mental world, you can make a start that ends successfully. The start of a new project needs close examination because it sometimes creates a mental crisis. People ask, "Where should I start? And how can I persist? And what should I do?" I want to show you how to answer all these questions. Just follow as many of these rules as you can. Whenever you start a new project, 1. Know exactly what you want. 2. Be confident of your inner forces. 3. Collect all available information. 4. Dismiss wasteful and negative attitude. 5. Score a series of small successes. 6. Harmonize with natural laws of success. 7. Cease pointless actions. 8. Make the most of every opportunity. 9. Concentrate on one area at a time. 10. Enjoy your new project. Suppose that you want to start a new program in your relations with other people. You want to understand people better. You wish to attract new friends, customers, associates. You desire to be more attractive to others. Well, you can get off to a good start with any or all of the above points. Take point 3. Why not begin in a regular reading program with solid books of psychology and social relations? 4.6. You can review some of the natural laws of human relations from Chapter 5. Take point 9. Why not concentrate on making your conversations of more interest to others? Do you know why you can be at perfect peace with any new program? Because life never requires you to do anything beyond your present ability. Stop and think about that. You need to do only what you can do for now. What can you do right now? You can start. How to build personal strength. How can you build more personal strength with which to achieve either an inner or outer success? All extra strength comes from additional self-unity. And self-unity is one purpose you have in using mental pictures. They help to unite your inner forces so that daily challenges turn into victories. One benefit of self-unity is that you are totally engaged in the act of the moment, that